will report it as malware on this page. So that page will start getting reported to Google and blocked in search engine. You'll get blamed for all this stuff. And you'll be scanning your page saying, people say there's malware on my page, but I can't find it on my server. But it's because it's not on your server. It's just in the, you have a vulnerability that lets people bounce code off your server and hurt people. And cross-site scripting is incredibly common. Something like 80% of websites have it. It's considered a real low importance thing because it doesn't mean you can hack into the server and steal the data, but it does mean you can hurt the users and spoil the reputation of the company. And so it's a problem, but it is so common that people don't usually care very much about it. Anyway, so here's what the typical dangerous thing you do is you steal a cookie. So if I do this, it's going to pop the cookie up. And there's the cookie, which is just a bunch of meaningless junk here, but it has a PHP session. And if I had logged into Hackathon, which you can, I could steal your cookie. And if they don't have any anti-CSRF defenses, so now you can steal cookies and show that you've got them. And here you can actually use one of my servers where you can send arbitrary data to the server and it appears. And so you can actually steal cookies, send it to a third-party server and steal data from that. So you got the whole structure here, where you have sort of a command and control server and you're stealing sessions. Then you can do session fixation. This is kind of amazing. Another vulnerability in Hackathon. It turns out, let me make an account here. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to call myself Hope Demo. That's what I'll call myself. Hope Demo at mailinator.com. Okay. And my password is my top secret password. Okay, so I make an account, new user. All right, I've got to fill in this garbage. Okay, so now I have an account, register. Okay, and now I'm logged in. All right. And so I'm going to log out. I'm going to do a shift refresh. And now I'm going to start looking at the cookies. So I can do this in Burp, but I don't even have to. I can use the web console, another useful thing. You go to web developer, and you got a thing called the web console. And you can just type in JavaScript and execute it down here. And here's the command that shows the cookie in your browser. So this is a good thing to learn. A lot of developers learn this stuff. So I can see the cookies in my browser, and I have a PHP session ID. All right. And notice my PHP session ID, I don't think it'll get bigger. Well, oh, well, good. I can make it bigger. All right. So my PHP session ID is FB473. And if I log in with Hope Demo, my password, and sign in, now it knows who I am. It's got a log out. And if I repeat that command, the cookie is still the same, FB478. This is a fundamental flaw. You should not have the same cookie for an unauthenticated session and an authenticated session. When people log in, you should generate a new cookie, and it should be different than the unauthenticated cookies that you use for targeting ads. And the reason is I can just change that cookie. So I can change the cookie with this command right here in my browser. I can change that cookie to 123. And now when I print out the cookie is now 123. So now if I refresh the page up here, right now I'm logged in. It has a log out button. When I refresh it, it's going to, I thought it would forget who I am. That's disturbing. Shift refresh perhaps. Yep. Nope. Your account, my orders. I don't have any orders. Well, anyway, I'm not going to struggle with this much, but it should have forgotten who I am when I changed the cookie to that. Maybe I need to choose another value. Let me just try one more thing before I give up on making my demo work. There. Try that and refresh the page. And now it's thinking about it. This is good. Neat. Okay, it doesn't like my cookies. Let's try shift refresh. Okay. This error page, neat. Okay. So I got to delete cookies or refusing to accept cookies. All right. Let me figure out how to delete cookies. All right. I appear to have fouled I'm going to go back to 1, 2, 3. That's probably matched. 1, 2, 3 probably remembers me from an old time. Let's try this. Anyway, at least I'm not logged in anymore, which is the main thing I wanted. Let's see if I can get back to normal or if I just have to. Yep, I'm hosed. I need to get to a login page. Okay, let's find out how to clear cookies. Just a moment. I'm glad I'm not recording this. But anyway, cookies. There's got to be a way to delete all cookies. Cookies and site data. Clear data. Yeah, let's do that. Clear data. Clear all data. Good. All right. Hopefully that will get me back to plain normal stuff. So now if I load this page, it loads. Good. And now I have to log in. Okay, now I feel better. So let's look at the cookies. Let me shrink this a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. All right. So I'm at a login page, and where's my console? There we are. Okay. So here's my cookie. Right now, I have a PHP session ID that is V882DR. What I wanted to show you is I can assign that a number. I'm going to make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I choose the cookie number. Now I'm going to log in. So I got Hope Demo and a password. I sign in. Don't save. And it's thinking about it. And fouling up. All right. I'm not going to struggle with it now. Anyway, the point is, if you go through these steps more carefully, hopefully it will work for you. And the point is, you can assign a cookie value. So this is called session fixation. I can send you a link that puts the cookie in your browser and then has you log in. And now you get a login session, and I already knew the cookie value. That's called session fixation. And it's one of the many vulnerabilities on this page. So anyway, there's one there to go through. And let me talk about ECB encryption is another one that's fun. I don't think I'll demonstrate it live, but I want to talk about it. This electronic codebook encryption is one of the classic mistakes of encryption. This is where if you encrypt data with this technique, the data is not very well hidden. So once you've got, if you go to a login on this page, it's going to take your username and password and encrypt it with GES in electronic codebook mode. So this is what the encrypted data looks like. It takes blocks of text, 8 characters long, and encrypts them into hexadecimal values. But it does not add any varying value to each block. So you can rearrange the order of these blocks, and it will still accept it as valid encrypted text. So now, as you might imagine, you can perform attacks by scrambling the data. So for example, here I've got a user ID equals 5. So if I was to rearrange this data and move this line starting with 9 down there, my user ID would now be 59. So you can move into other people's accounts by rearranging encrypted data, even though you don't have the key and you can't decrypt it. So that's the essential thing here. And the test here, which I use on a lot of mobile apps, is just make an account with a username or password that is 32 capital A's. And then if the encryption is using electronic codebook mode, you'll see repeated blocks of data where a block all full of A's encrypts to this, and another block all full of A's encrypts to the same thing. This is a fatal flaw. This indicates that I can rearrange the blocks with impunity. This should not be possible. If you used a more secure mode like cipher block chaining, it would add a varying value to every block so that these would be scrambled differently just to prevent this sort of attack. So anyway, you can now go through this and you can use that attack where you rearrange the blocks of ciphertext and get into other people's accounts. And Burp even has a extension to help you do this, or a page called the decoder that will go through this. And there's various other techniques. Anyway, so it's kind of a good way to practice using the fancier features of Burp. And I saw people doing the Zattack Proxy, so let me just explain these two things. Google Cloud servers are these free Linux servers. I highly recommend using them. What is this stuff? Someone is sharing my screen. That's right. That's what I want. So let me find my my Google Cloud servers, which should be here. Okay. So you have a Gmail account and a credit card. You can get $200, $300 of free service. And oh, good. I violated some policy. Let's ignore that. Okay. And all right. Oh, yeah, this one got shut down probably by getting hacked or something. Anyway, so Yeah, in fact, I remember the snake I made yesterday. Let's just delete that server. By the way, if you want to preserve your money, you can delete your servers when you're not using them, and I'll delete that one. Anyway, so you make a server, you just create it in the panel here, and you could open them up here with the command line. So you can have a headless server where you execute only command line commands easily, and that's fine, and I'd use that for most of my projects. But if you want to use Zattack Proxy, you might be able to do it from your home network, but if your home network is filtered or not very fast, then you probably want to use the cloud for this. So you set up a headless server like this, and then you add a desktop to it. And I found the easiest way to add a desktop to a headless server is this thing called Chrome Desktop, which is a lot like Microsoft's remote desktop, but easier to set up. So you just execute some commands, you install the software on the server, you install a desktop on the server, and I just chose the smallest, lightest one I could easily find. And then you can actually have a graphical control of one of these headless servers. So you can run graphical tools there. You will have a graphical desktop, a very rudimentary one, where you can launch software and you can install Firefox and run Firefox on the server. So once you've done that, you can then run graphical tools. And I did this particularly for my students at my college because the college network, the Zattack Proxy is a Bowne scanner. And Bowne scanners are very, very noisy. A vulnerability scanner will try sending every possible attack to a page. So when it finds a page like a search page or a login page, it will send hundreds of requests, putting all sorts of funny things in there to find vulnerabilities. So it is incredibly obvious and noisy and troublesome. And any kind of secure network will block this obviously malicious traffic, like my college. So students can't really do projects using this tool from the college. So I have them do what real pen testers do. You make cloud machines, you do your nasty stuff from there, and then you throw it away later. So get used to that is a good policy. So you put it in the cloud and scan my machine from the cloud, and then you will get fast connections and unfiltered traffic. So you can run this thing called ZAP, which is the Zattack Proxy, one of the free vulnerability scanners. It will automatically find vulnerabilities on the server. And I should just mention, it'll take some time to run, although I think it only takes like 10 minutes if you use the Google Cloud. And then it finds all this stuff, SQL injection, command injection, file inclusion. It is real important to know you can't believe this. Bowne scanners are really unreliable. They will miss vulnerabilities. And what they mostly will do is they will complain about vulnerabilities that are not there. So when you do get a report like this, you can't just give it to the customer. They won't say thank you. You have to go manually verify these vulnerabilities because you have to decide if they are in fact real, if there really is a cross-site scripting vulnerability. And more importantly, you have to decide, does it matter? Can you actually get data that matters where you can like steal somebody's credit card number or buy a product? Because most of these vulns, even if they're technically present, they don't really matter in the context of the business. And that's what you pay a security expert to do. Just like when you go to the doctor can say, well, you got to lose weight, quit smoking, get more exercise, stop drinking, divorce your wife, move to a more healthy area, breathe cleaner air, do all that. That's not helping you. To list all the things you should do, you have to say, considering your whole situation, this is what you should do. This one thing that you could reasonably do that would help. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for human judgment. I know we have 100 problems. Don't tell me that. I want to hear the 3 problems that I can fix like this month that will make things better. And that's human judgment. Anyway, so you find these and then verify a few of them and find some flags. And that's the process. This is Bowne scanners are useful tools for security audits, but you have to add human judgment to them. And that's the point of that one. So I think I'll stop for a bit. Let's catch up with questions and such. See how many people are on here. So we're up to 68. How's everything going? I see a lot of questions going by, and if anything I should be paying attention to, like defects in the scoring engine or something. No screams of protest. Okay, good. Then let me talk about Postman a bit. Postman is for API testing, and API testing is super important. The API is what you use to send specific requests up to a server, and mobile apps, Android and iOS apps in particular, run on APIs, but so do many other pages. And I've heard they were terrible, and boy, I found that to be true in my own experience auditing mobile apps. There's a ton of these interfaces that don't really have an authentication at all and let you just request other people's data and see it and foolish things like that. So Hackathon has an API, just like everything else. So when you put things in the shopping cart. It's sending requests up to the server to get the information. And, you know, in the old days, Web 1.0, you would just send an HTTP request with a GET, and you would get a whole page and view the page. But now you send little requests, like get the image for this one product, get this little piece of a web page, little piece of a map so I can scroll the map. Those are APIs, more careful requests. And so Postman is the #1 tool for this. For testing APIs, designing APIs, Postman is just a graphical tool like Burp that makes it possible to send web requests and customize them. In principle, you could do this with Python or anything else. This tool just makes it more handy. You install this thing. I think it's another Java-based tool, runs on any operating system. You can now create a request. You can send a GET request to the server, and it will show you the response. And you can now send all different kinds of services. So there's a REST service, representational state transfer, one of the common API types. And there's documentation here. So when you talk to it, you have to use basic authentication. So you give it a name and a password. It scrambles it with base64 to make basic authentication, and then it sends it to the server. And when the server accepts you, it sends you a token. This is very much like the SAML we saw earlier. This token is now your ID card to send with future requests, so it will realize that you've actually logged in as a known user. And you can watch this stuff go by. You can send orders of products with posts, and it will add them to your shopping cart, and so on. You can do this, and it is a very useful thing to get some practice using Postman and APIs, because it is a really important security issue. And so I got the GitHub API working. I was not very successful getting the Facebook API working. It's complicated, but the GitHub API was simple enough that I was able to do a few simple things with it. So you make a GitHub account, and now you can use Postman to send requests to GitHub and get your token and see it go by. And, you know, if you write mobile apps or web apps, you have to get good at using these APIs. And the most important part of audits these days is often auditing the APIs. I was just discussing this with a client last week. We were discussing the price, auditing mobile apps. And I said, it's very, very, very important that we get user accounts and we really focus on the API, because that is often the worst part of your app is, in fact, not on the app, it's on the server. The way it sends requests to the server and gets responses is likely to be the big flaw that will really hurt you. Whereas a flaw directly on the phone is often smaller and less important because it only affects one user. And I found several apps that just let every user find all the passwords and credit card numbers on the server by design. So anyway, that's the other stuff in this section. So let me pause and see if there's something else that should be talked about. Will the workshop recording be made available? That's a very good question. We are not recording this workshop, but I have some recordings from a previous one up here that demonstrate a few of the tools. I usually this kind of workshop, recording the whole thing would not be any use because it's like 4 hours of babbling. Most of it is not interesting. What I do is when I'm doing it on my own software, which is Zoom, I make little recordings of the demonstrations and put them up. But another thing you might care about is that if you go here, there's a bunch of other workshops and a bunch of other classes, and there are lectures there and videos you can see and such. So, but yeah, this one, we're not recording this. If we did, I don't think it'd be worth anything if you had like this whole 4-hour thing with pauses and answering questions and stuff. But I did put a few videos here focusing on certain tools, like demonstrating Zap and demonstrating Splunk. Good. I see other questions going by. I'm now recording. I didn't mean to. Somebody hit that button. Wow. Huh.
Yeah. We were talking about it.
I hope I didn't say
I was gonna say we were talking about it in our Twitter channel that we're recording and we're not sure who's recording, and we turned it off and then
okay. It can be. I have no idea what's going to happen. God have mercy on you listening to this dribble. Anyway, I don't know why anybody listens to my hour-long lectures either. I would never listen to that junk. That's why the ones I think are most valuable are like the 5-minute demonstration of one tool. But anyway.
Remember too, what Sam said, that their previous videos recorded, and this a whole lot from workshop to workshop. So you can watch the previous ones. Also, if you are really interested in this stuff and you want to do a deep dive, I'll post a link in the group shared notes resources, but there isn't actually a semester long course that has all of this that this workshop is based on, and there are a series of lectures on YouTube that are embedded within that course page. So again, I'll post it in the shared resource. But if you want more, there's more. So don't worry.
Yeah, but if you want it, I mean, if you go to the old classes on my homepage, I've got here we are. I think I did. Yeah, I did it last semester. So here's a whole class if you want it with like a textbook and quizzes and stuff. And here's a whole bunch of lectures, like hours of lecture every week on each of these topics. So it's all out there if you want it. All right, good. But most people in the CTF format, they like to focus on what I always do. I do a lot of CTFs, and I don't try to get the whole thing at all. I find one or two problems that are interesting, and I learn them. So, but whatever technique works for you. Anyway, let's talk a bit about Splunk and Suricata. Here's a couple projects where you set this up. Once you've got your Google Cloud account set up, then you can set up a Drupal. And this is a way to install old vulnerable versions of Drupal, which is, by the way, a terrible thing to do. You don't want to expose this to the web. That's what I did yesterday. Remember, I just deleted an account machine. I set up one of these during a demo yesterday, and I exposed it to the internet, which I shouldn't have done. And if you do, it will get hacked, sometimes within like 10 minutes, and immediately start running a cryptocurrency miner or something. And then Google will send you a nasty gram saying, your server violated our terms of policy, and we turned it off. What's wrong with you anyway? So this is an old vulnerable version of Drupal. So if you don't expose it to the internet, it's still exposed to your other Google Cloud machines, so you can practice attacking it yourself. But if you expose it to the internet, it will get hacked in a hurry. So these commands create your Drupal server, and Drupal is like WordPress. It's this place to make a website, and you can just use a graphical browser-based installation. So you install this thing and configure a website, and eventually you will have a simple little website. And we don't really care about the minor error messages or putting any content on it. We just want to show that the engine itself is vulnerable. So once you got your Drupal installed, then you can start attacking it. So as I mentioned before, make sure you do not expose port 80 to the general internet, or it will get hacked and filled with malware and wrecked. Now you can install Splunk. You log into Splunk, install Splunk, and all you're going to do here is get this wget command, which will let you install Splunk on Linux. And Splunk is just the major SIEM platform. We're going to talk a lot more about it in a few minutes here. Once you have Splunk, it listens on a website, and you can just control it graphically. And now you can examine the traffic on your server with Splunk. So once you have Splunk, I found I had to make the disk a little bigger, and this shows you how to edit a Google Cloud Server disk to make it bigger. And now you have to import logs into Splunk. The simplest thing on Linux-based machines is to just monitor the var log directory. That's where almost every product puts logs, and you can just take everything in that directory and feed it into Splunk so it knows what's happening on your server. And you can also import data from everything else, from web servers and firewalls and everything else. So once you've done that, you can see some events here, like everyone that tries to log in with SSH will appear in the authentication log, and you can see that go by. And so that's one thing you can do. And then you can put on Suricata. Suricata is an open source intrusion detection system that just has a database of known suspicious traffic. And you can put that on, configure a test rule, and send a test attack. And then you can download the real official rules, and then it will detect real attacks. And you can attack it from your other machine and detect these attacks. So this lets you see all the steps of configuring some simple defenses. This is how you monitor a network for attacks and pass it into a good search engine like Splunk and get the basics going. So once you've seen how to set it up there, this is something you may or may not care about, actually. If you were to get a job at a company, you would not do any of that. The Splunk setup would have been done by someone else, like your Active Directory setup. A beginning technician does not configure Active Directory. Somebody else has configured it. What you do is use it for things like password reset. So if you want to get an entry-level job with Splunk, you would not be setting up Splunk. You would just be using it. And that's this one, Boss of the SOC. And I want to go to this next because I mentioned you could just spend this whole workshop here. You would not have wasted your time. And we had it yesterday too. This is really important. So Boss of the SOC is what you will really find at most companies, somebody else has already set it up and got it working, and you're just learning how to use it. So you connect to the Splunk server here. I've got 2 servers up there for people to use, and it's best for me to use Opera because my other browser doesn't remember the authentication. So splunk.samsclass.info. It'll remember the student one to get in. And now you can use Splunk. And this is a cloud server running with Splunk on it, and it's got data in it already. So it's got about 1 million events in it. These are from attacks. What the Splunk people did was they set up an Amazon group of Amazon web servers with a web server and other servers and monitoring and Splunk, and then they ran a bunch of attacks on it, and they collected the traffic and made it all public. So you can now search for traffic here. So you get used to using Splunk. So if I go to a data summary, I can see what kind of data we have. Now, for some reason, by default, they show me the names of hosts, which is not usually the most informative to me. I prefer source types. And here's where you understand what Splunk is. Splunk is just Google for log data. That's what it is. It lets you search through your logs. These are the Windows event logs, like the security application log and so on. Here's the Windows registry events. Here's event logs picked up through Microsoft Sysmon, which is a tool you add to Microsoft servers to detect interesting events like file creation and application launch events. Here's FortiGate Firewall, sending FortiGate information. Here's web server, IIS, Microsoft web server. Here's Nessus. And if you go down here, it's got stream data for different types of network traffic. Splunk can be configured to monitor live network traffic, and it does not collect all the packets, but it collects a summary of each flow. So you'll have an HTTP flow. It'll say what the request was, what the response was, how many total bytes were transferred. And so it has information about network traffic. And we also have Suricata. Suricata is installed, and it detects known malicious traffic and sends alerts up to Splunk. So Splunk has all this data. And the only hard part about using Splunk is that you have to understand how the data is structured. So if I search, it's going to be slow unless I turn event sampling to say 1 in 100. That'll make it faster by skipping 99% of the data. So if I search with no criteria, it's going to find nothing. Now, there's an index. And one thing you want to have is bots E1. That's the index that contains the actual data here. So I can search for that. And it's going to find 0 events. The reason it's finding 0 events is this Splunk is not, in fact, monitoring live network traffic. It's just looking at old stored traffic, and that old stored traffic is 4 years old. So the first thing I have to do is switch to all time here, or I'm not going to find anything. So once I've done that, it now finds some traffic. And you see it takes a few seconds to run. When you see the check mark, that means it's done running your query. I had about 1 million events, and it found about 10,000 of them because I made it 1%. It's only looking at 1/100th of them. So this is what Splunk finds. You see events here. These are log entries. And you could, in principle, just have a text file full of logs and hunt through it with grep. And all Splunk is doing is making it easier to automate that process and search through a pile of log entries, like Google looks through billions of web pages and makes it a lot easier than trying to search through source code on web pages by yourself. So here's an event from some Microsoft product. A Sysmon, this is some kind of Microsoft Windows event. Here's another Microsoft Windows event. So you can read events one by one here, but that's only useful if you've previously filtered them down to a small number of interesting events. When you have a big group of events like this, it's better to look over here for categories of events. So I see something called action. If I click on that, it'll show me there's some things that were allowed. There's some things that were blocked by a firewall or something. There's things that were failures and deleted. So if I wanted to see what being blocked here, I could just click on that. It'll add that to the query. And now I'm seeing a much smaller number of events, and these were blocked by something. So I can, now this is the FortiGate firewall that blocked something. So that might indicate some kind of attack or error happening. And so that's the essence of how you do it. And you can type in command line commands here to specified searches, which is really not much more complicated than the Google advanced search syntax, or you can use the mouse and choose off lists here. And the thing is to learn how to do that. So let me just demonstrate the basics of this to get you started. And there's actually a video of this from yesterday, which I may add to the page if there isn't already one here. So the point here, the simplest thing to do is to detect traffic that goes backwards. So if we look at HTTP traffic, we want this source type equals stream HTTP. So I put that here. And I'm going to leave it at sampling 1 to 100 for now. Although when you're sampling, you have to remember that, or you'll be confused when you can't find things. I'm only seeing 1% of the results. These are the HTTP requests. So here it shows you the request going up. Here's the content. It says not found. This was some page 404 not found. And then if I scroll down here a bit, I'll see more requests going by one. So you can see some requests happening. Okay, now this is all the HTTP traffic on the network. Now I would like to see traffic going to my web server. So I put in the URL of the web server, which is imreally.batman.com. That is what they used for the domain name of this server. So now here you have the most common way to use Splunk. You have field equals value, and that is the most efficient professional way to use Splunk. But you can also use it just like Google, where you just type in a word and then it will just look for that word anywhere in the event, just like grep would. And that is technically wasting some server processing time, so the Splunk experts don't like it. But you can do it that way if you just don't care, like me, you just want to find the answer and you're willing to waste some CPU time. You can just search for words. And so these are fields that contain the domain name. And of course, the only thing in HTTP that would contain the domain name would be a request to the web server serving up that domain. Although in principle, it could be something else like an email with the domain name, but then it wouldn't be coming over HTTP. So that's why, they say actually specifying the field name would be more precise at getting exactly what you want. But this is pretty good. It works in practice. So now I'm getting data that went to my web server. And I can see right here what I was hoping to see. This is malicious traffic. I can tell because the request to my server has these Acunetics fields. And Acunetics is a phone scanner, like Zap that we used earlier. So the attackers used a commercial vulnerability scanner to try to find a weakness on my server. And so now I know the name of the product they used, and I know the IP address of the attacker. Here's the client IP. So that is the IP address that the attacker used to attack my server. And I know the IP address of my web server. That's this destination IP. I'm just going to put that in the clipboard. So now I've learned a lot. I found an attack. I found the identity, the IP address of the attacker, the type of tool they're using, and that's the first several flags here. So once you've done that, you want to find the name of the scanner, the attacker's IP, the web server's IP, and now I'd like to find the defacement file name. That's probably as far as I'll go in this demo. So here it shows you why Splunk is wonderful. So the client IP was up here, CIP. So if I click on that, it'll show me there are 2 client IPs. Now, if I just click on either one of these, it'll restrict to that client IP. And I like to use the mouse to get the format right. So I'm getting traffic to my web server with the client IP there. Now, what I want to do is modify this to look for HTTP requests that come from the web server. This should never happen. Your web server should be a server receiving requests and handing out the web page. It should never be a client. You're not supposed to, on a server, open a web browser, go to the internet and download stuff. That means that's a really poor practice. And Microsoft will block this. If you install a server operating system, it will install special extensions in the browser that stop you from doing that, because in the first place, you could put malware on the server and get it infected. And in the second place, your server, when it gets hacked, people will run reverse shells on your server that will try to connect to the command and control server. So you shouldn't allow that traffic. So a properly designed network will never allow a web server to be the origin of an HTTP request. So let's see if this network allows that. Now, if I run this query as it is, I'm going to get no results for 2 reasons. The first reason, of course, is I got sampling. So I'm only seeing 1% of the results, so I better turn that off. But even if I do turn it off, I still get 0 results. And the reason is because I'm looking for events from my web server, but I still left the domain name in here. And that means it's very strange that I would be making a request from the web server to another server, and it would still have that domain name in it. So I have to get that domain name off of there. And now I'm looking for HTTP requests that came from my web server, and I'm finding just a few of them. Out of the million events here, there were 9 times that my server acted as a client. And these are traffic that goes the wrong way on my network. And this is why people pay big money for Splunk and big money for people to run Splunk, because you can quickly zero in on the 9 malicious events out of a million events. And these are malicious events, and you can just read them. First one is sort of big and hard to read. The second one is much easier. It went to a server with this funny name, like Jumping Crab, on a funny port. That is not a real commercial server. This is a malicious server that's been hacked, that's being used to distribute malicious content. And then they downloaded some insulting name image, which they used to deface.
Sam?
So, yeah.
Sam, I hate to interrupt you, but your sharing has ended.
That's funny. How did that happen? Okay. Thank you for telling me. Oh, take presenter. Somehow I lost presenter. Neat. Well, there's always a defect. Good. Let me bring it back up. Yeah. There do seem to be a few defects in the system. All right. Now it's back. Right. So here we are. Anyway, the point is, here's the query you need to solve. You need HTTP, and you need the client IP to be the web server IP. And now you'll get the traffic that's going the wrong way. And the second one here is pretty easy to read and understand. It shows them going to some goofy looking domain name on a strange port, downloading some suspicious looking file name. So that is the attackers downloading a malicious file to put it on your web server. And so that's, if you continue doing this one, you will learn other skills which are awesome in Splunk. Like you can find a brute force attack. They tried hundreds and hundreds of login requests with a whole dictionary full of names until they got into the administration panel, and you can totally find it, and you can find out what the final correct name was that they used. You can detect the difference between the scanner that comes in with a user agent of Python, and then after they found the right thing, there was a time delay, and the real attacker logged in with a real browser with a different user agent, and you can see that. And then you can find, so you can watch the brute force attack go on, and then you can find a ransomware attack. They infected this machine with ransomware. It started encrypting all the files. You can see the ransomware attack in progress. You can find the request that loaded the ransom page from a malicious server that pops up the page saying your files are encrypted. You have to send Bitcoin to this address. You can find the script in VB script that ran to encrypt the files. It's just wonderful. You can even find in another spot, you can find a place where a USB stick was plugged in, and you can even get the identity of the USB stick from the Windows event log. So that's the thing. Your time will be well spent if you just practice using Splunk here. And there's a series of flags to put in. So there's that. Let's see, when he goes here, he gets a prompt to enter an installer password. All right, let me see if something's wrong with Hackathon. Maybe Hackathon has been trashed. Hackathon.
Yeah, I was about to let you know about that.
No, but it seems to be fine. Maybe the HTTPS version is different. Hackathon S. Perhaps the secure one is different. No, now he says he's getting an installer password, but it's working fine here. Now that is mysterious.
Yeah, it's
delete cookies.
Yeah,
delete cookies. She's probably right. Yeah, just clear your browser cookies. Yeah, well, like I did. It's probably from messing with your cookies. So go into. I'm going to use Firefox so I don't lose cookies that matter. Yep, like I was having problems here. Once your Hackathon is loading weird, it's probably your cookies. So just go here into preferences and find a way to delete all the cookies, and that should hopefully make it work. That's got to be it. Thank you. So stored cookies, clear data, cookies and cached content clear now. And now, if I get rid of this junk and just go to Hackathon, it still won't load. How rude. Oh, it does. It's just not visible because my page is zoomed in too much. Good. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Just clear your cookies. That's probably it. Good. Oh, yes. And I'm glad people are bringing up these comments. You can use free products instead of Splunk. Elk or Security Onion, which is a product that includes Elk. Elk is the free alternative for Splunk. And there's ones in the middle like Logarithm that are cheaper than Splunk, but easier to use than Elk. So, that's why your Linux purists will say, why would people pay for Splunk? You could just get it for free. And you can, But if you use Elk, you'll find it's much harder to use. So it's the same as everything else. You can pay for Microsoft Office. You can get OpenOffice, which technically does the same thing, but it's just not as easy to use. So it turns out that convenience is worth a lot of money to people, and they will cheerfully pay a lot of money to get a luxurious product like Splunk. But it doesn't do anything that those free products don't do, really, except have a good interface and a large community of people writing software. Like every firewall and every web server, every product you buy, they give you a Splunk add-on for it. Whereas if you're using an open source product, you might have to write the add-on to move the data over to it. So those are all just convenience features, but convenience is a big thing. Yeah, setting up an alt stack, that's cool. Yep. And yeah, that's right. Yeah, I see good answers out there. Good. Yeah, I taught Elk for a couple of years, and my students suffered greatly with Security Onion. That was very hard to set up and unreliable, and all parts of it were out of date. And I got frustrated and just switched to Splunk. Splunk is the commercial product that you just install and it works. And, you know, there's a steady flood of updates and everything. So, all right. Let's see. This thing goes for Rachel. That can't be right. Right. Okay. This thing is only 2 hours, or is it 4 hours? I should answer these all important questions. Let me see. Workshop registration. Workshops. This is the web. Okay. 240 minutes. That's what I thought. Somehow I thought it was only 2 hours, but it is in fact 4 hours. Okay. So we started at all right, so we started at 9. We're going until 1 p.m., not 11 a.m. Fine. So we've been an hour and a half in. Anyway, I've demonstrated most of it already. The Splunk is fine. We should talk then a bit about the networking and a bit about the defenses. So Nmap. Nmap is your number one tool for finding open ports. Everybody loves it. So you have to here. You have a Windows machine you set up and a Linux machine. They're both in the Google Cloud if you've been following the steps here. And then you can scan a Windows machine with Nmap. You already have a Windows machine handy available anyway. If you run Nmap, it will just find the open ports on a machine, and it can do more, but that's the most common thing. And it'll give you a simple name. It's the number one tool everybody uses. So then I've got a few flags where you can scan a couple more of my servers and find unusual ports. One thing I learned recently from pen testing hack the box thing is how to make Nmap faster. Because one thing they tell you whenever you're doing pen tests, or for that matter, capture the flag competitions, you should scan all 65,000 ports. And Nmap takes like 20 minutes to do that by default. But if you use these switches, it gets much faster, and it does that in about 2 minutes. That is extremely handy. Otherwise, it's pretty annoying to do them all. And then you can find all the hidden services on unusual port numbers. The -P- should work, yeah. So you can practice with Nmap. And let me get back to my list of challenges here. And then you can practice Wireshark. Wireshark was also in yesterday's workshop. Wireshark is the number one tool to analyze network traffic, and at every company you need a Wireshark expert because there's always network problems, like people can't log in, people can't reach a page, and very quickly you just want to look at the raw packets. So Wireshark is how you really learn how networking works. So here's an FTP PCAP you can install. I should just mention, you should not use Wireshark to monitor live network traffic like you might do with Suricata or something. Wireshark is not safe enough for that. It had a performance flaw in that it just stores all the packets in memory, and when it fills up the memory, it will just crash. And it has a security problem because Wireshark understands every network protocol, voice over IP, and every crazy thing. And it does that with just a community of amateurs that are writing protocol dissectors that just go into Wireshark, and they're not really very audited. There's an endless chain of security flaws where some protocol dissector has a vulnerability. So you shouldn't be running it on your server to monitor live network traffic. You should be using TCP dump or an SIEM service, IDS service like Suricata for that. What you should use Wireshark for is analyzing a saved capture. that is of interest, because then you get this graphical interface. And so if you load this FTP, you can just see here the handshake connecting to the server, and you can then find the password. It'll show you the traffic here for plain text protocols. Here it is logging in with a username and password. And since FTP doesn't encrypt anything, it's just right there. And you can steal the passwords right out of the info column. If you use HTTP passwords that are using basic authentication, it's a little different. You'll find it down here. And you can then follow a TCP stream is a very useful skill at Wireshark. When I started for the first several years, I would just look at packets one by one. And that's kind of in Splunk, looking at events one by one. That's for amateurs and beginners. The pros learn how to do more interesting things. Like you find one packet of an interesting stream. Like here's somebody logging in. So I follow the TCP stream. And now I get this display, which removes all the addresses and combines all the data from all the packets. So I see the request that was sent to the server in red, and I see the response in blue. So this is much better. Now it's much easier to see what happened at a high level. So it's one useful technique. And so now you can view HTTP requests and replies. And there's some challenges here where you find passwords. And then there's a challenge that came from Red Team DEF CON event about a month ago, not the official DEF CON, but one of the groups, where they had captured a flag, and they had this, and I thought it was wonderful, so I wrote it up. Here, this is APT traffic. It's a wire network traffic file where people did various things. They download a tool, they run the tool to create an encrypted channel, they then send encrypted traffic, but they do it in a way that you can break in. You can find the encrypted transmission, you can find the port they're using, you can find the tool that they downloaded, and they even transmitted the encryption key unencrypted over the network. So you can find the traffic that included the encryption key, and you can decrypt the traffic. So it's good, clean fun. They also ran port knocking, which is where you send a series of requests to closed ports, which knock and open an open port, and then you connect in. And you can find those up there. So that's a nice little practice for understanding malicious traffic. And then I just have a ShadowSock proxy. I've got other proxy projects. But if you've never set up a proxy server, it's a good thing to do. And this is one form of like a VPN. If you want to send all your traffic through an encrypted channel to a server so you can escape, say, content filtering. That's what I always used proxy for. Back in the ancient times when you used to go out to coffee houses and travel to conferences, I was often trying to read news and stuff, and the network would block the traffic. And so I had a proxy where, all right, I've had it with this. I remember I took a cruise on a cruise ship, and they had the internet, but it was kind of slow, and they wouldn't even let you watch YouTube videos. And I said, well, the hell with that. I turned on a proxy. I'm watching all this stuff. People around me look at me. How do you get there? I said, well, they have their opinion about what I can see, and I ignore their opinion and turn on a VPN and see whatever I want. I mean, anyway, so you can ShadowSock got my attention because when we went to China, to DEF CON China, of course, the Great Firewall blocks everything. And the local Chinese hacker said, ShadowSock is the thing that will blast through the Great Firewall. And boy, it does. So you can set up your cloud server as a ShadowSock server, and you can run your traffic through it. By the way, one of my students did this in the lab one time. If you want to have some fun on a public server, just turn on common proxy software on a common proxy port. If you do that, within 5 minutes, all these people in China will start surfing porn through your server. They're desperate to find ways to get through the Great Firewall, and they have automated processes. So that was kind of fun. You just turned on a server and then turn on the log, and immediately all these porn URLs start scrolling by from China. So anyway, and all you have to do is move it to an unexpected port, and that will not happen. They won't find it. Anyway, so you can set up your own proxy server, and then you can surf websites, and you will not find the domain names unencrypted on your local network anymore because they're all encrypted. So you can easily make your own VPN server. Of course, if people are trying to protest an oppressive government or something, then this might not save you, because in the first place, anybody monitoring your network can tell that you are using a VPN, and they can tell what IP address you're coming from. And also your VPN server company probably has logs, and they're probably responding to government requests and stuff. So don't fool yourself into thinking you can just do anything and get away with it necessarily. But it does mean you block simple content filtering and stuff. Anyway, all right, so there's more stuff down here. Let me pause and see if there's anything else I should be doing. Here's someone that thinks that server is down. Let me try it. Hackathon S. Oh, now, hey, I
Yep, now it's down. Good job, everyone.
Okay, somebody finally hacked it. Oh, good. Okay, then I will restore it from backup. I have a backup for just this reason. There are people like Caitlin that hack it like crazy now and then. And Caitlin was a good student. When she took my classes, she hacked everything really severely, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to learn to be good and deadly. So let me restore my hackathon. It is DigitalOcean is where I put all those hacking servers. DigitalOcean has never kicked me off, even though I keep running all these vulnerable servers and getting hacked. I really appreciate that. When I started running deliberately vulnerable servers, I thought I would end up getting banned and hacked because I keep getting hacked. But I learned a few tricks like limiting the outgoing bandwidth. So if they get hacked with some kind of malicious tool, they can't do too much harm. And the end result is I've never had enough trouble that I've caught their attention. So there's Hackathon. So there should be restore. Let's see, let's go here. Hackathon. There should be an image saved. All right, what's going on here? It ought to just be, here we are, snapshots. Okay. Snapshots. Okay, here is a snapshot with everything fixed from 4 years ago. So I can restore droplets. There we are. I love this. By the way, in Azure, you totally can't do this. This is something I learned at a CTF. If you have a domain controller in Azure and you forget your password, you might as well just commit virtual suicide. There is nothing. There are like 3 techniques Microsoft provides, and none of them work at all. I can't believe how popular Azure is compared to other cloud services. It is so not ready for prime time. Anyway. But anyway, so the hackathon thing is restoring. It'll take about 5 minutes, and then it will presumably return to correct operation briefly until somebody hacks it again, which is what we're all here for. So anyway, let me skip down to the command injection stuff. This is more fun stuff. Linux Journey, by the way, is here if you want to learn basic Linux command line. Here's just a very nice online tutorial that gives you an explanation of the basics of Linux, and you can turn in flags and stuff. So that's a good way if you want to learn the basics of Bash. But after you know the basics of Bash, you can then start hacking servers. And here's the simplest vulnerability you'll see all the time. If you go into your router configuration page, there's often a page in here that says test your networking. So you can put in an IP address, and then you can feed it into some page and say send pings, and it will send pings and show you the results. Unfortunately, some people are like really sleazy programmers like me, and instead of figuring out how to actually, this is a PHP page, and instead of figuring out how to actually perform a ping from inside PHP, I just created a line of Bash and then fed it to the Bash interpreter with OS command. So it's actually just putting ping minus C2 and then this IP address. So you can just put other commands here with a semicolon like ls. And if you do that, it will execute ping of that, and then it will execute ls and show flags on a server. This is called command injection. This is one of the simplest and most deadly vulnerabilities, and it keeps happening over and over and over in web apps and mobile apps all over the place, where they take some data from the user, like an IP address or an address or a product number, and they just put it in some command line, and you can add other unexpected commands in there. So now I can execute commands on the server when I was really only supposed to be just a user. So there's flags defined on the server, and you can try using some command line commands to hunt them down. And here's one of the examples that really showed how deadly this is. This is ImageMagick, which was the most popular graphics manipulation library on Linux servers for a long time. And 4 or 5 years ago, it had a command injection flaw. So I'm running a server with the old version on there. So I can upload an image. So let me find an image to work with. Like I should be able to find like a Hope logo. There's an image. Open image in new tab. So let's save that image someplace. I'll put it on my downloads folder and Hope 2020. That's a good name. Okay, so now I have an image. So I can upload this image to my server. And all I did was copy somebody's bulletin board software that used ImageMagick. So I choose the file, downloads Hope, okay. I send that image up to the server with upload, and I program it. I added just where it will print out the commands. So it executes this command convert, which is an image management command, which will resize it to a thumbnail, 300 by 300. So there's the thumbnail. And when you click it, you see the full-size image. That's all this does. But as you can see, this is what's in everybody's profile page, and every website that handles images on a Linux server pretty much uses this library. And the problem is this library had a command injection vulnerability. So what you do is make a text file with content like this. So let me bring up a text editor. It's here. All right. So I take a text editor and I just put in that content. Let me blow it up so it's big and easy to see. And then I save that and make it look like an image. So I save this as, let's go to downloads and call that xex.ping. So it has a PNG extension, so it looks like an image, but it is not an image, it's just text. If I upload that file, ex.ping, and say open, and send it up to the server, it tries to create the thumbnail, and then it prints hello and the date. So if I look at what was inside that file, which is here, you can see what's going on is, for some reason, the developers of this image manipulation library decided to let you add a background to the image. So you could fill an area like this many pixels in size with a color. And for some reason, they decided it would be cool to let you load the color from a URL. So this website is the URL. And the way they implemented it was they just put curl followed by the URL that came from the user. And just like in my ping example, if you put in the right punctuation marks, you can now just put command line commands here, like echo, hello, and date, and they will run on the server. Because they did the same sloppy programming I did. They took data from the user and just made a line of code and executed it as a command line. So you can just add more commands, change these to commands, and now you have command execution on my server again. So for example, if you wanted to know if you have administrator rights, you could try adding who am I here. That should work. Let's do file save on that. And then upload that image. So choose file, ex.ping, open, and upload. And now it did hello, and then the date, and then who I am, www.data, which is the Apache user. So I'm not the administrator or root. I'm just www.data. So my privileges will currently be limited. But if you've taken your exploit development classes and stuff, you know that once I can upload files, I just find the version of the operating system, I find an exploit, put that up there and run it. There are plenty of ways to escalate privileges on old servers that would have this old version of junk on it. So anyway, Caitlin looks happy. This is a bad sign. She's probably destroyed something. Anyway.
No, we're just talking in the chat.
Okay, yeah.
We're having a good time in the chat. Yeah.
Usually when Caitlin gets that happy, that means she's hacked one of my things. So, yeah. Anyway, anyway, that's command injection, and there's other ones down here too. There's also a Drupal server which had command injection I'm running, so you can totally use this Python file. By the way, if you run this, you'll have to install Python 2 on your server. This is a Python 2 attack. I think people last time were finding that it's hard to run on Python 3. So anyway, again, you can attack my server and find flags that are hidden on it with these command injection attacks. All right, and the next thing will be SQL injection. Let me just pause and see if anything else requires my attention. Let's see, by the way, if the Hackathon servers come back up. Hackathon, there's the insecure version, and HT, stop messing with me, TPS. Here's the secure version. Looks like it's back up. Okay, good. Anything else? Security, obscurity, and all that jazz? Yeah. Well, you know, security through obscurity is one form of security. And by the way, one thing Bruce Steyer said is that's all you ever have. In principle, there is some attack, and you just try to make it hard to find so people can't find it. You know, as a philosophical statement, security through obscurity is probably all you ever have. But, you know, if it's really hard to find the attack, you call that secure. If it's really easy to find the attack, you sneer at that and say that's not good security. But there's no fundamental philosophical difference. Anyway, how do I get Burp Suite to stop causing the site to hang indefinitely? Probably you need to turn off interception. Oh, right here, intercept. Go to proxy intercept, and make sure it's off. If intercept is on, it will block all your networking. All right, is there something missing for W510.3? Well, maybe I'll take a look at that before going to another topic. 510.3. Intro to Burp? Oh, I doubt it. I think people would have noticed then. Let's see. 510.3. Oh, that's the one. I even demonstrated. Now that one works, but you have to open this in your Firefox so it goes through Burp. And all you're trying to do is send a longer state name like that, longer than 2 characters. And you can do that in Burp on the repeater tab. But you cannot do it directly by typing into this form. By the way, it does remind me to demonstrate something else fun about Burp I didn't mention before. If you wanted to violate the rules of a site and you wanted to make it really easy, Burp has a special feature that is so easy, it kind of makes me sick. So if I load that page here in Firefox, here Firefox, here's my Firefox. Okay, so I load that page and I look in the history. Let's clear all this old stuff. Okay, if I load this page, okay, and down here someplace was that form where I put in the state. There it is. So here I'm typing in the state. I type CA, but when I type more letters, it won't take it. So when I submit that, it goes here and sends it up to the server, but it only sent 2 letters. Now, you can go into options and you can go into response modification down here, and you can tell it to change things like unhide form fields, remove length limits, enable disabled fields, and so on. So you can tell it to change pages when it replies. And now, if I just go back and refresh this page, now I can just type longer names right there. I should be able to. It looks like it didn't work. Let me try shift refresh to get rid of the old stuff in the cache. And that should, now I should be able to type C-A-T. Yep. See, now it's just modified the HTML on the way to me. So now I can just use pages like this and break all the rules. So this makes all these attacks incredibly simple. You modify the response and it loads automatically a version of the page that removes all these common validation measures. So that's kind of good, clean fun. Anyway, let me go back to my main instructions here. And all right, so we talked about all this. And the main thing I wanted to talk about was SQL injection. All right, I'm going to step away for a minute and then come heat up my coffee. I shall return, and then we'll talk about SQL injection, which is really important.
Well, Sam does that. If anyone has any questions or wants me to go back over anything, let me know, and I will do that. All right, so we have a question about running through Nmap stuff. Sure, so I will take the presenter. And share my Kali machine, I hope. There we go. All right, so do we have a, do we know the question or CTF number that you want to know the Nmap stuff for, or just a explanation of Nmap in general? And then yes, I will go over host, server, proxy, etc. And after I do Nmap, because Nmap really is one of those important tools that you really need to know. Even when you have access to a lot of the high-end scanning engines like Nessus, you still end up using Nmap. So I do want to do that first, and then I'll go over Alice's question. Okay, so Nmap, here's my terminal. So Nmap is, as mentioned, a scanning engine. So I'll go through and try to find open TCP or UDP ports. You do nmap-h, and you can see all the different things it supports. In particular, when I run Nmap, in fact, I run Nmap so often I pretty much have this memorized. I do nmap-ss, meaning I'm doing a SYN stealth scan. So what it does, when you do a regular TCP handshake, you do SYN, SYN-ACK, ACK, right? So there's like 3 parts. But with the SYN scan, it just does SYN and it waits for that SYN-ACK, and then that's it. So it knows that there's a connection, but doesn't do the full TCP connection. This requires reprivileges, but it's a little bit faster. And then I do, so -p- does all ports. So like, let's say we wanted to search for websites. Websites are often on ports 80 and 443. We could do that too. So if we did -p 80, 443, that would search for websites on standard ports. And then I would usually do standard scripts, output all formats, nmap, websites. Sometimes I might use -a. That's a little iffy. So -a is the enable OS detection. It'll try to figure out what the operating system, the system you're scanning is. And then you just put in the site like hackathon.samsclass.info. You push enter. Oh, also, I forgot, -v, so verbose. So this will let me know what's going on in the background while it's running if it finds ports. --. Nope, that's not what I want, just -a. And it has to be sudo because I'm running SYN stealth scan. And there we go. Failed to resolve hackathon.samsclass.info. Let's just do regular samsclass.info. Or I can just spell it correctly. Samsclass.info. Boom. There we go. Starting Nmap. Aha! Discovered open port 80 at hackathon.samsclass.info. And now it's going to run standard scripts. Going to try to detect the operating system. So NSE stands for the Nmap scripting engine. So one of the best things about Nmap are its scripts. And I don't really have the time right now because Sam just got back to go over the entire scripting engine, but it is really powerful. And if you have time after this, I would highly recommend going over and viewing all the scripts and trying to figure out what you can do with these scripts, because you can do brute forcing. You can try checking for vulnerabilities. You can, do a ton of stuff when it comes to SMB. Get a list of users, try to figure out like what's on the server. I mean, it's really incredible stuff. Does it take a while? I'm just gonna Control-C. But yeah, so that's how Nmap works. So essentially what it does is it sends TCP or UDP packets to the server, and it then gets a response, and then you can have it run scripts against those responses to figure out what's going on. And it's probably the most important tool when doing initial reconnaissance on a system. And then the other thing we want to know was the difference between a proxy, a server, and a client. And unfortunately, I wish I could do a diagram. But essentially, so the client is your machine. Just think of the client as the machine that you're currently on. The server is a machine that's far away, and a proxy is in the middle. So if you wanted to send traffic between my machine and the server, and I want to figure out what was being sent between my computer, the client, and the computer that's far away, the server, I could send that traffic through a proxy, and that would let me know what's going on. And so that's kind of the general makeup of those 3 things. And you can have the proxy on the computer you're on, which can make things a little confusing, I know. So you proxy with your client But remember that all computers can be clients, all computers can be servers, and all computers can be proxies. So I hope that answers. I know it probably makes things more confusing, but just, yeah, client, your computer, server, another computer, proxy, a computer in the middle.
Caitlin, there was a question that I'm interested in too. Your Nmap command line had Nmap underscore websites. What was that?
Sorry, what? Nmap what?
Command line, you used Nmap underscore websites. Right there.
Sorry. So yes, output all formats. So what that does is that puts the output of Nmap into multiple formats, and that is the file name of the format it's putting on there. So if I go like this, you'll see that there's nmap.g nmap, which is a greppable format.
Oh, it's just
nmap website. Yeah, nmap, and then nmap websites XML. So that's what the output. So output all formats is one of those things that you should get in the habit of doing when you start doing penetration testing.
Good. Glad to see it. All right. And I see.
I'll use Sam.
Okay, let me go back, share my screen then, because, all right, good. I saw a question about Splunk that I think I should answer. Someone was asking about the MD5 part in Splunk. So let me see if my screen share is going to work. I'll get my Splunk up while that is connecting. There's my Splunk. Oh, good. All right. So someone asked about this MD5 one. All right. So you found an executable file that the attackers loaded to the server, and I got to find that first. So I'm going to do that here. So to find, I think the person that asked the question was beyond this, but I need to go through the steps to get there. So first I want to find the executable file name. So I want to find the HTTP events using the post method. So here I have source type is stream.http, and I'm going to turn my event sampling up to make it faster and search for those. And now I'm going to find the HTTP method, which is here. And so there's post, get, and head. And I want to find the post ones. So now this is all the traffic that used the post method. So I'm going to turn off the sampling and get them all. And I should find 15,570. And I did. Okay, now I want to exclude the events from the vulnerability scanner. So the simplest way to do that is just not Acunetics. That will mean it cannot have that word anywhere in the event. And in practice, that's good enough. So that will get rid of the stuff that came from the vuln scanner. And now I just need to find Windows executable extensions. And I think all I need here is .exe. I mean, again, it'll find that string anywhere in the event, but now there's only 2 events. So I can just look at them and see what's going on. And down here, I find a whole bunch of file names. And if I use Control F, I can look for exe. So Control F, .exe, that will just highlight it on this web page in my browser to make it easier to see. So here is something called 3791.exe. And I think that, in fact, is the malicious file getting downloaded and run, 3791.exe. So that is the name of the attack that somebody used. So now that I know the name of the file, I want to find its MD5 hash. So find events containing that file name, which is this, 3791.exe. So let's go back to here, and I want to find them from sysmon with event 7ID or 1. So let's just find events containing that file name. Get rid of everything else and just put in the file name. Whoops, didn't take it. I didn't copy it somehow. 3791.exe. All right. And there are only 76 of them, so this is not too bad. Now I want to find ones that came from sysmon. So I think looking at source type might be a way to do that. Source type, here I got sysmon, That's most of them, so that's not narrowing it much, but at least I've done that. Now I want to find the event ID 7 or 1. So let's see if I can find that. I think they might call it event type, processor network. There used to be something called event ID and event. Here's event ID. Good. 7 or 1. Okay. And so really, I don't think I need to refine this much. I only have a couple of 5s in here. So find events and find that file's MD5 hash. So let's see what MD5s exist here. If I do Control F to MD5, that might do it. Yep, here's the MD5 values. So I have a bunch of values, and now I have to figure out which one of these refers to the file of interest. So I need to understand these events. And so here is the image, Joomla 371.exe image loaded. And I think I just had to think about what's happening here to find the specific event. This is use event type, process, and network. I think what matters here is probably process. Let's try narrowing down to that. And now I'm down to only 6 events. I might have meant it here. Let's see. So this is, let's search for MD5 again. All right, now I'm down to 3 values. And let's just get events with an MD5 field. I think I might find it. Now I got another 5 events. So let's see if we can understand here. This is a process. Parent command line 3791.exe. That really looks like it's launching this file. Let's see if we can tell the difference. This one is cmd.exec. This is the one that actually launches it. If you know your Windows command line, this is the command that launches a new CMD shell with the /c, a new console, and runs that in it. So I think this might be it, although the hash here might actually be the hash of CMD. So I just have to try a couple of these to get down to the end of it. So at this point, I would just call it good enough and say, I've got 3 possibilities and find out which one is right. Although understanding more about the Microsoft events would help you narrow it down. But I think it's one of these. Let me just check the answer. I think it is one of them. I've got my answers here. This is 131, bots 131. And yeah, it's the last one. So that's as close as I got. To understand why it's this one and not the other 2, you really have to go into more about exactly what's in these events. But this is the one that did it. Yeah, and it looks very similar from the parent command line. Here's the data command line. It's not easy for me to tell. And by the way, if I really wanted to thoroughly understand this, what I would do is set up a Windows server and then run a file, turn on sysmon, and look at the events and figure it out. That's often what you have to do in forensics, is duplicate the situation to find out exactly what makes the subtle differences between these events. Anyway, hope that helps. See if there are any other ones I should do. Smoltron, yeah. Okay. It's just a text editor. Anyway, oh, I'm still not getting it. I've tried every single protocol for 420.5. Okay, let me take a look at 420.5. Is that the Wireshark one? No. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Wireshark one. Yeah, this one here I've had a lot of practice with. All right, so to find the tool, yeah, up here you can find the protocol port number, and then you can just find occurrences of that port number. So let me download this and open it in Wireshark, and we'll take a look at some of this. So there it is, saving somewhere, and open it in Wireshark. Okay, now, so we wanted to find the encrypted communication. So it's going to be statistics protocol hierarchy here. And now you can see what protocols were used. So here's TCP, Here's SSH, but there's only one packet. That's not very interesting. Here is HTTPS should be here, TLS. Here, TLS, why don't I see it? There it is, TLS, has 52 packets. So that is the encrypted traffic. So I want to see that traffic. So I right-click and apply as filter selected. And so these are the packets that are encrypted. And you notice it's going to port 8443. So it's TLS, but it's not going to the usual 443 port. So somebody ran some kind of encrypted communication channel over port 8443. So now I can just look for that in a command line, which they use to launch it. And you can look for contents of a command line with frame contains 8443. That'll just look for that text in the packet. And there's only a few packets that have that in there. So here you can see it sending some kind of password, changing working directory to files, connecting to some illusory technologies, domain, and so on. So this is FTP. They downloaded something over that port number. And what I'm expecting to see now is the port. I want to find the tool used to perform the encrypted communication. So in here, I'm going to actually find the command line that launched the encrypted communication. And I think it'll be, I think just scrolling through these one by one should do it. Let's see. Received by, this is connecting to an FTP server. I may have to do something a little smarter than this, but I thought I would see TCP. It's probably this TCP stuff. Yep, here's the data. I think I found it this way. Is there more? Oh, there is not much more. All right. I think I found it by just following a few of these streams. If I right-click one of these and follow the TCP stream, there's one of these that is a bunch of command line. This is email. That's not the interesting one. Let me go back to here. Yes, that's email. I don't want that. Let's try this one. This is also email. LO. That's not it. Let's go back. Let's try this TCP stuff because I think that is it. Follow TCP stream. This is an ELF file being downloaded. And this, I think, is in fact the encryption tool being downloaded, although it's not incredibly obvious from here. But you can find the command line that was used, and I'm, as usual, having a little more difficulty finding it than I expected. Let's try. Frame contains 8443. I'm somehow having a lot more trouble than I expected to here. I leave these hints every time I have trouble and expect the hints to guide me, and somehow it never seems to work. I found frame contains 8443, and somehow I'm not finding the tool. I should be able to find just a command line using that tool. What about this one, maybe? Follow this one? All right, let me. My notes are not helping me as much as I'd hoped here. I'll give up pretty soon and come back to this at another time. TCP on this port is different. This is FTP. This is the 31337. This is the email. There ought to be something else. This is email. Huh. Very strange. Well, let me cheat. I know the answer is SOCAT. Let me find out why I can't find the SOCAT. SOCAT is the name of the tool. So what is going on here? This is the TCP stream on 31337, which I thought I found before. No, that's this garbage. Well, somehow I'm lost. All right. Anybody else figure this one out? I figured it out like yesterday, as a matter of fact. And again, I can't do it today, even after saving notes. Very annoying. Find the sequence of commands used to create the encrypted traffic. There's a key file name that includes the key. Let's try this down here. This is all the same thing. This is all referring to. Let's search for .key. I don't know why this is being hard for me now. It seemed easy yesterday. So this is it. This is the FTP stuff. All right. Well, I think I'll just go on to SQL injection, which will work. This one here, I'm hopelessly lost on. Just skip it for now. We'll wait for somebody, hopefully less confused than me, to figure it out. And let's talk about SQL injection. So here's SQL injection challenges. And what this is a series of databases on my server. And of course, they're getting hacked all the time. So each section delimited by lines is using a separate server. So reset the server with that script. And now this is command injection, just like the ping form and other command injections like that image processing library. The only thing that's hard about it is you're injecting into this language called SQL. And a lot of people are not familiar with SQL. This is the most common and most dangerous form of command injection. The other kind is actually much easier to exploit, but it's relatively rare. This is extremely common. Something like 11% of all the websites have SQL injection vulnerabilities. So your developer can execute SQL queries, and they can do things like this: show databases. Your structured query language lets you send a request to a SQL server, and it will then show you the data that it's got stored. And the point is, you can get anything you want if you know the name of it, and you can ask for it. So a normal user would never have this kind of access to a server, where you can just type in an arbitrary command. This is only the administrator should have this privilege. But if you want to learn the language, you can do it here. So everything is stored in databases, and the databases contain tables, and the tables contain records, and the records contain fields. That's how databases work. So there's two databases here. One is called widgets, and that's the one created by the administrator to store the company data. And the other one is called information schema, and that is automatically generated by the software. And it always has the same name, which is how SQL injection works. You can find all the names you need because there are automatically generated tables that always have the same name that you can track it down, just depending on a SQL software. This is MySQL, and it always uses that information schema name. So now you can select just literal things like numbers and text, and it will just print them out. So this is like the Linux echo command. I can have a 1, and you can do string processing. Like this is going to select a couple of letters out of the word peanut, starting at the second letter and picking out 2 letters, so it gets EA. So that's a little bit of SQL to learn. And now, if you know the name of a table and it's in the current database, then you can get all the data with select star. So if you could write an arbitrary select query, you could just get it to tell me everything about the employees, and then you'd find all the goodies, like their social security numbers in that table. So if I knew the name of the table and the name of the database, or it was the current database, and I could somehow inject select star, I could dump out all the data in the table. All right. And but what's more common is I get the information for only one employee. So I use this where clause. So I'm going to get information where the ID equals 1. And now I get only one user. And this is what's actually happening behind the scenes when you read your email or look at your profile on Facebook. There's a database with everybody's information, and it's got a where clause, which limits it to just your information, and you can see just your information. That's the game here. So you can concatenate things into a single field, and you can find things like all the table names in the entire system, information schema tables. And if you do, there are many, many tables that are created automatically by the software here in capital letters. And at the end, in small letters, is the only table created by the actual company itself. This is where the personal data from the company is. All this is just boring boilerplate stuff. And you can get all the column names too, which is all the columns of data in every table. And again, you see a really long list of capital names automatically generated. And at the end, ID, name, and SSN. So this one just has one table with ID, name, and SSN in it, and that's it. So you got a couple of flags here, which you can find by trying these examples in that database. And then we can move into a more realistic situation, because this was just to teach you SQL. This is not a way, something you'd be able to do on a real website. Nobody would let you have this kind of box where you can put in any kind of select query. Nobody gets that access except the administrator. What you get instead is a box like this, where you can search through the users to find another user, and all you can do is put in a name. Like you can put in Sam and submit, and it will tell you there is nobody named Sam, so there are no results. And here I let you see the query. The query is select name from employees where name equals Sam, and the only part of this I control is that part. All the rest of this was written by the developer, and I can't change it. So at first glance, this looks like it's secure, but it isn't, because I could do things like this. If I put Sam apostrophe and submit it, then I get an error in the syntax, and that is the kiss of death. This means I have command injection on the server, because it took this apostrophe that I typed in, and it matched it with this apostrophe that the developer put there. So it interpreted the command as referring to that string, and this extra apostrophe broke the syntax. So that means it took data that came from the user and it misunderstood it as a control character, which affected the flow of the commands. And that means I can inject code. So let me shrink this a little bit to see about it there. So now I can go down to here with a more careful injection, Sam or 1 equals 1, for example. And when I run this one, it gives me all the data, because I injected this username, and the Sam is here. This apostrophe matched that. I now changed this where condition to where name equals Sam or 1 equals 1, which is always true. And then I put in a pound character, which commented out this apostrophe, so it's no longer a syntax error. So now I have a valid command that will run, and it gives data, which is not what I was supposed to be able to get. I was only supposed to be able to see one user's data, but I can see all the data because I'm able to inject commands. So that's the game. And now you can find things here. You can use SQL map to attack my server, which turns out to be easy on this server and harder on this server because Cloudflare blocks some SQL. Actually, you have to use some of the evasion options inside SQL map. SQL map is the automated tool that most professional pen testers use to automate this. But mostly what this challenge is learning how to do it by hand. So you can hunt through using these queries and the other example queries and eventually get down to what you want. This is probably the most important one. If I do this, then you can use the union command to combine two queries. So I have a select query here, then I have union, then I have another select query. And as long as the two queries produce data of the same type and with the same number of columns, it will just add them together. So this select query produces 0 results, and this select query gives me a result 1, so I get 1. But the point of this is I was now able to inject an entire select query arbitrarily. So this syntax means I have turned this box into that box. I can now type in an entire select query. I can take any of these and inject them when the developer thought I was only putting in a name. So really, they have given me an arbitrary SQL command injection when they thought I was just logging in or searching for something. So that's the game. And you can Now, the other thing is, what if the SQL query does not return any data from the server that you can see? So let's try this one, blind SQL. So again, I can search for a name. So if I search for Bill Gates, I find Bill Gates. So that looks good, but I'm going to find out it's not good. Because if I search for X, or Z is fine, I find no result. Okay. But if I search for, say, this, which is a injection string that will dump out data, then this was a valid query that found something, but it did not print data from the server. Instead, it reflected back the data I put in. So I can tell that the command ran and succeeded, but I do not get any data back from the server at all. This is what's called blind SQL injection. This command worked, and I know it worked because I found a result. If I change this A equals A to A equals B, which is a false statement, then I don't get a result. So I can now ask one yes or no question of the server. I can put any true or false statement here, and if it's false, I'll get no result, and if it's true, I'll get a result. So now you play 20 questions. You can ask questions of the server one by one. So for example, if I want to know the name of the database, I can start by finding out the length of the database name. So this command will be name equals X, which is always false, or length of database equals 1. And if that was true, I would see a result. So the length of the database is apparently not equal to 1. But I could change it. For example, I could see if it's greater than 1. And that's true. So I get a result. So you can ask questions and you can narrow things down. And since you know how to do substrings and get just one letter at a time, you can ask questions like if you can get the name of the database, if the first letter greater than M, greater than J, greater than C, and narrow it down. And so you can gradually find the length of the name and try other things. You can pump out SSNs with this kind of hogwash. Like this one here will show you how you would pump out a name of a user. And the same thing would apply to passwords. Okay, name from employees, where name equals Bill Gates and substring of name 11 equals B. So this is looking at the first letter of this name and asking whether it's B, which is of course true. So I get an answer. But if I was to change this to an A, it would be false and I would not get an answer. So you can pump out things one letter at a time. And this is what SQL Map does for you automatically. Hundreds of queries to narrow things down. And you can do it by hand, and you'll be able to find these things. So that's a little practice with SQL injection. And we've already talked about this command injection. I think we've got the same thing in here twice somehow. No, oh, wait, that's right. That's right. Remember, this one is Windows command injection. That's right. Let's see if my server is still up. This server crashes a lot. My server is down. Okay, I'll have to restart that server. So let me pause and do that, and I'll be back. This server keeps getting hacked all the time because it's running really vulnerable stuff. And you end up being the administrator over a Windows server, so people keep trashing it. But I love cloud services that give you easy image-based backup and restore. If it weren't for them, it would be nearly impossible for me to run all these vulnerable servers and let them keep getting hacked all the time. This one here, I think, might just need a restart. It's usually all it needs, which is a good thing because I'm using Vultr, and Vultr, unfortunately, does not really let you recover from an image-based backup very easily. The only thing you can do is create a new machine, throw away the old one, and change the DNS entry, which is not horrible, but it's kind of annoying. DigitalOcean is much friendlier, but they don't give you Windows. And so the point of this one is I'm actually running a Windows server. You have Windows DOS command injection that you can practice playing with. So that'll probably come up in a minute or two. And oh, it's already up. Good. All right. That's one good thing about it, nice and fast. Okay. So if you don't know any Windows command line like dir and ls or dir and make dir and cd and stuff, you can practice that here, the basics of Windows command line. And here you've got a server like the ping server on Linux, which has a simple command injection. So this lets you see the number of files in the directory. So if you give it dot, it will show you a list of the files in this directory, which is C, examp, htdocs. And I'm using this examp server, which is only intended to be like testing websites, because it runs a server that gives you administrative access on the server and is horribly insecure, but that's kind of the point here. So you see some files here. And so now you can inject commands like this. You use an ampersand, and you can add another command to the command line. So this will do who am I, and it will show you, it does the directory, and then at the end it does who am I and tells you that I am the administrator. So you have administrator command injection on this Windows server. And so you can, I can echo hello to a file here, and I can put it in a directory that I can see. So I'm going to call this hello hope.htm. And now I should be able to see that here. If I go here and type hello hope, I put hello in there, so I can now deface my server by adding extra files to it. That's an arbitrary write vulnerability. And you can execute any Windows commands. So now you can execute commands to hunt through the server and find some flags and such. And so there's a series of flags that are harder and harder to find there. And you can learn the Windows command injection. All right. Into the MS-DOS Windows command line is the technical term for it these days. And the next one I want to show you is SSTI, which is mind-blowing. And this is where you'll learn a little Python 3. Python 3 is amazing stuff. See, modern websites like Amazon are not just loading an HTML file, it's running an engine that fills in like a form letter to customize it for every user. And they use a series of engines like Jinja 2 and others to do this. And you can make your own version of this thing. So on your own server, you can install this product and run it. It's a container running in a Docker container that serves up a vulnerable vulnerable template service. But I already injected one that you use in the later projects, and I'm going to use the one I've already installed. So what this does is it demonstrates server-side template injection. So you can search for people like, say, Joe, and it will tell you Joe exists. It always does. So that's not very exciting. There is no real database. It just thinks everybody is there. But I'm going to use this to demonstrate this vulnerability. So let me shove it to the side and then try some of these things so you can see how it works. So once you've got your thing working, you can install your own. Now we can fingerprint it. So if I search for Joe, it finds Joe. Now here's a simple injection. If I use double curly braces and put in 2 times 2, I can put it after Joe. It now found Joe 4. So what's going on is this is the syntax for fields for the server to fill in. Remember, it's a form letter, so it can fill in name of your most recently purchased product, name of your topic, the ads that match your cookies. It's got these meta fields that it fills in from the engine. And because the developer did not filter this input field, I can inject meta characters, which then run on the server. So once again, I've got command injection. The command injection is going into this template engine running on the server. So it's just a matter of learning how to use that language. So now you have to find out which of the common template engines is being used here. And there is a fingerprinting flowchart. Try these injections. If it works, you follow the green arrow. If it fails, you follow the red arrow, and you will determine which of the common template engines is in use. So $7 with one set of dollars and curly braces, 7 times 7. That's the first one. So if I run that, it echoes back the template without evaluating 7 times 7. So that's a failure, and I follow the red line. So now I put 2 curly braces around it and get rid of the dollar sign. And that one evaluates to 49. So I follow the green arrow. So you can go down here and determine which of the common template engines is being used. And it'll tell you Jinja 2, Twig, or Mako. And in fact, we're using Jinja 2. So I could now execute template commands on the server, whatever those are, and that might seem relatively harmless, but it turns out to be absolutely fatal because this template engine runs in Python 3, and Python 3 is mind-blowing. So let's play some games with Python 3. I want to just open my Google Cloud server, which is going to be one of these windows here. There it is. Okay, here's my Google Cloud Linux server. Now it comes with Python 3 installed. I can just type Python 3, and now I have a command line with Python 3 on it. And so I can just put in things like 2 times 2, and it'll give me 4, and so on. So I can make a string. I can make a string called s and call it hello. So Python is an object-oriented programming language. When you create a string, it is an object. And you can find out what the object is consisted of with the directory command. I can do a directory of a string. And this will list to me the attributes and methods of the object. So here I've got methods like add and class and iterate, and then other things like title and index and so on. This is an amazingly complicated object, just a simple string. So something I have is underscore underscore class underscore underscore. I can perform the class, I can get the class attribute of my string with a dot. So the class of my string is str. So it is an object of class string. Now I could also use things like lower, and that would be the method that performs the lower activity. If I want to actually do it, I use open and close parentheses, and now it changes my hello to a lowercase hello. So these are the things that can be done with the string, and those are methods of the object string, and this is an attribute of the object string. Okay, so now what I can do is I can wander through walking up the hierarchy. The entire Python 3 structure is a big assembly of objects in a hierarchy. So we did the class before. The class of the string is string. I could do the class of the class to walk up the hierarchy. And the class of that is type. So the string is a string, and the object class string is a type. All right, you can also use base to move up, and you can use, so I can do class base, and this takes me to the top of the entire Python tree, gets me to the thing called objects. And once I've walked to the top, I can start walking back down using the methods. So I can wander down and eventually get to import. So I can inject stuff into a string that will actually import libraries that the developer did not import. So I can import a library like OS system, and then I can execute system shell commands from inside Python. So even if the developer only imported a couple of libraries, I can import new libraries and put them in there. So it's like SQL injection. These long, complicated structures can be used to perform injection. And so it's kind of mind-boggling. And this is the thing. You wander all the way up through this. So you end up with these long injections. And by putting this into a harmless place like a string, you can execute arbitrary bash shellcode from inside here. So this is something that actually you eventually end up defining something called X to shorten it, and you go and import the OS, and then you execute the date command. So you can actually execute the date command from inside control of a single string in Python 3 based applications. So it's good, clean fun. You go through here, you get to perform command injection on your Python 3 stack. Then you can do it on your SSTI stack, and then you can take my target, which has this SSTI engine running, and you can find some flags on my target by executing bash commands on my server, which is pretty amazing. It's another vulnerability like SQL injection, where you can inject into some strange language, and if you're good enough at it, you can eventually find a way to turn that into injecting arbitrary command lines and do anything you want. Here's one that hit the news about 3-4 months ago. Salt is some kind of remote control system used for servers, and it had a command injection vulnerability. So you can easily install an old version of Salt I love Git like everybody else. You can just totally clone a repository and then do git tag, and you can see all the old versions of everything right there. So you can just tell it which old version you want and install that old version. This is wonderful. So I can totally install a known vulnerable version. And once you've done it, you've got a salt stack. So there's a proof of concept exploit out there. This is a lot of people do this. They write proof of concepts and they publish code that's broken. I think it's something people do. There's this whole full disclosure issue. Should you publish proof of concept? Isn't that helping bad guys do things? So one place a lot of people end up is they publish broken proofs of concept with the belief that criminals won't be smart enough to fix the code. And that way they won't be blamed for people exploiting it. So this is a broken Python script to exploit the salt vulnerability. So I showed you how to fix one flaw. You have to change this to true instead of false. And then you get part of it to working. And you have to find some other flaws to fix to get all the good stuff working. If you fix the code, you can then exploit my server and find some flags on my server. Anyway, it's that's the salt injection. And there's another product called PHP FPM is another service. I think this might not be a template injection. I think that's the wrong description. But anyway, this PHP FPM extension, again, it had a vulnerability. And once again, you can download this thing. And once you've got it running, you've got a vulnerable server. And again, it had a command injection vulnerability. So you have to install Go to run it. And once you've got Go, there's an exploit somebody wrote in Go. And you can use Go to perform the injection. And then you can inject a PHP shell and get arbitrary command injection on the server. So it's a few steps. But again, the same old story. Some part of this software created a line of command line code using data from the user that wasn't validated, and it ultimately leads to command injection. So those are good ways to practice that. And let me stop and see if anything else needs attention. Going back to Splunk. I got lost after getting the IP address. For really not Batman, I'm confused by the hints. All right. Let me see if anyone else has answered that one. Looks like they haven't. Okay. Let me answer this Splunk one then. There's also something about stealing cookies. All right, let me answer the Splunk one if I can find it. I appear to have lost the Splunk question. There. Caitlin answering to Elliot. Oh, good. You've gotten an answer there. Good. Okay. Maybe there's none of these need my attention. Here's somebody asking about flag W231, stealing cookies. Stolen cookie looks different. Oh, Caitlin's on that. Go. Okay, it looks like you people are on them. Good, good. Okay, people seem to be, all right, good. And of course, this will all stay up. If you want to look at this stuff later, you just go to samsclass.info. And it'll be on the old classes page. So during Hope, it's up here. After Hope is over, it'll be here on the old classes. So this stuff all stays up. These are all the conferences I've been to and such. So it'll be here. You can continue to use it later. Another thing I might mention is that it's free to use. There's even an official use policy here. I've officially made this stuff all public domain in some official statement. So if you want to incorporate this into your company training or put it in a book and put your name on it and keep the money or anything like that, you can totally do that. Of course, none of it is all that original. This is ordinary. Another thing I should mention, by the way, is this is not like NSA grade weapon military hacking or anything. All this means is our school meets the NSA recommended requirements for cybersecurity instruction. This is ordinary beginning hacking tutorials that you'll find in various forms all over the place. None of this is like military grade top drawer. This is beginning stuff, what we're teaching here. Do I take donations? No. Pass them on to somebody that needs them. I have a job. So there's no ads or Bitcoin addresses or anything. They pay me. I'm okay. Just help some poor beginning hacker that needs something if you want to. Buy them like a account at Hack the Box or something if you want to help somebody. All right. And so let me see if there's anything else I should mention here.
I am encryption to 2600.
What about 2600? Oh, yeah, buy him 2600 if you want to help somebody. Yeah, buy him some 2600 magazines. That'd be good too. Yeah. Let's see. I wonder if there's any of these I forgot to talk about. Oh, yeah, these ones. So if you have not set up an HTTPS server, you might want to do that. It's really pretty easy. And I think these days you actually, use a real SSH. Since the EFF started doing this a couple of years ago, you can get a real certificate, which is pretty awesome. You used to have to pay for these, but you can just get them now from certbot.eff.org. You can get a real HTTPS certificate and have a real HTTPS domain for free. So that's pretty awesome. So if you've never done it, you should check that out. Everybody should be encrypting everything. Don't run whatever you're doing. Don't run it over HTTP. That's ridiculous. I only do it for deliberately vulnerable servers. HTTP is too dangerous to use for any purpose because even if you're not taking credit card numbers or passwords, since it's going unencrypted, anybody can just add JavaScript and other code to your page as it's transmitted. So modern browsers will complain if you use HTTP at all, even for apparently non-personalized stuff. So everybody should be using HTTPS. So you should get used to configuring an HTTPS server as a routine activity. Another thing everybody needs is these things. reCAPTCHA is, of course, where you get these things to tell that it's a human filling out the form. So it can't just be a simple script. These things are pretty weak. There are a bunch of ways to defeat them, but they do slow people down. So you'll end up with one of these things. You have to prove you're not a robot and find all the images with lakes in it or something. So this, you can practice setting up one of the versions of those things. That is another basic security measure that everybody setting up websites should know how to do. And another one everybody should have is these canary tokens. This is a sin and a shame. Things sets this things up. People keep getting hacked and they don't know it. And there is no excuse for that. It is so easy to put up canary tokens. All you do is you add extra data to your database and extra links on your web page that you're not using. And then when somebody uses them, somebody hacked us and stole our data and they're using that stuff. You put in email addresses you're not using. And so here you make a simple web token. And as soon as anybody goes to that web token, it'll just send you an email and tell you it's been triggered. So this is so easy to do. You should know when you got hacked. It is very easy to do this. You just have to think of it in advance. You put some landmines in your equipment, just like, the cops put these things that blow up in the money that is stolen from banks. So it blows blue paint in your face when you open the money. That's all this is. When bad guys steal your stuff and sell it and people start using it, you will know that happened. There's people at DEF CON wandering around with t-shirts saying, Brian Krebs is my IDS, because most companies seem to have no clue when they get hacked. They lie about it. Brian Krebs finds out from the banks and tells you, dude, your customers' credit card numbers are being sold. Don't tell me you didn't get hacked. Because they don't do this. They have no clue that they've been hacked until third parties like the FBI and Brian Krebs come in and tell you, you got hacked 3 months ago. Your customers have been having their money stolen, and you don't even know it because you're a complete idiot. So you forgot to set up any detection system to know when you've been hacked. So that's an easy one. Everybody should know that. Anyway, I think that's it. I think that's all the stuff in this one. So I think we're just going to let it go and answer questions. We've got another hour and more. So when the time runs up, I will save the scoreboard and announce an official winner, and it'll just keep running. You can continue to solve challenges later, but you will only have the glory of being the official winner if you have the peak at that time. Old scores go down here if anybody cares. If you want to brag about it, here's the scores that were up there before Hope. And, but you can continue to solve challenges. And that's the story. Let's see if there are any more questions. I see people going by. Hitting my wall after 3 hours. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so check them out. And we have a lot more workshops and stuff. So if you want any more stuff like this, you go to samclass.info. We got a list of workshops we have up here. We're doing a bunch more at Hope and a bunch at DEF CON and Black Hat. And we're all teaching classes. I'm teaching a bunch of classes. Here's Irvin's courses. I think Liz will eventually have some courses listed here. We do a lot of this stuff. We go to conferences and such. So If you want any more, we got plenty more. Yeah, and all this. Good. I see the questions going by. Let me know if anything requires my attention. But good. Check them out. Can I show the courses again? Sure. Go to samsclass.info. So these are courses I teach every semester. The ones coming up next semester is malware analysis, cryptography, incident response, and this is my security management course, cybersecurity responsibilities. Irvin's got some beginning stuff. I think he's got Security Plus, and oh my, how professional looking. Yeah, he's got vSphere.
Ooh. Yeah, I have a number of courses from beginner to advanced.
Yeah, talk about it. This looks like good stuff. You got a course in Wireshark? Wow.
Yeah, so I've been updating my site to be easier to understand.
Oh yeah.
So I cover at Cabrillo, I cover all the cybersecurity courses, but I know that not everybody is at, either is right where we need them to be to start with Security Plus, or doesn't have the knowledge to get there. So I kind of did a little chart to show, like, depending on where you're at, where you can pick up your skills to jump into things like security, digital forensics, pen testing, and so on and so forth, and even color-coded it so it's easier to understand. So you see all the classes that I have, which is VMware, Security Plus, the 2 Windows, digital forensics, pen testing, Wireshark, and the last one that I haven't, I'm still designing, is the programming for hackers and pen testers.
Oh, this looks great. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want the actual classes, like there they are, so you can click on them and register yourself. And then if you want to get credit for it, you can actually sign up at Cabrillo. But you can see the full class here.
Yeah, and by the way, I should mention, you can take all mine for free too. You can just view, you can do the projects. You only get official college credit if you actually sign up and pay for it. But these are all open to the whole world.
Yeah,
the projects and the quizzes and everything.
And then also, I don't have a website put up yet, but I will. I'm going to be. I teach at the same school that Sam does, and I'll be teaching. I'll be teaching a beginning ethical hack, and network and exploit development semester. So we'll have those. We'll have links to those up so that anybody can watch the lectures or do the classes. Again, you have to enroll if you want to get official college credit for it. You can. You don't even have to be in California. You got to pay more if you're out of state or international. But if you want to, you can enroll in school and do the official classes. But a lot of people will join us just because they want to learn the info for free. So once I get my site put up, I'll have the link on Sam's page as well, so you can join them and jump in there.
Good place. So there's a question. Good places to start learning about InfoSec in terms of certs. I would suggest starting with the fundamentals of how networking works and how computers work, and then building out from there. Because it's kind of hard to break something without knowing how it works.
Yeah, normal thing is A plus, Net Plus, and Security Plus. That's usually how people start.
Yeah.
And then Cisco is good too. So you can get them at any college and any of the training centers.
Yep. Yeah. CompTIA. All the ones with the pluses tend to be CompTIAs. So like A plus, Net Plus, Security Plus.
Yeah, and then after that you can do like Certified Ethical Hacker and CISA.
Test Plus, CYSA. Yeah, you can move up from there.
It also depends on what you want to do. There's no general purpose answer for this because, you really have to kind of think about like what's your end goal in terms of this and what kind of job do you want to get? What do you want to specialize in? Because, if you're going into say like policy and compliance, none of this is going to help you. If you are going into web application auditing, getting a CISSP isn't really going to help you, or getting, say a Cisco cert. So you just have to kind of decide what you want to actually do.
Yeah. So the good thing about like Security Plus is it kind of gives you a broad spectrum. So you kind of get the feeling for what you really want to do, and then you can take off from there.
Yep. And by the way, I see a comment about EC Council. Yeah, Certified Ethical Hacker has a pretty bad reputation. It's not very valuable. It's just a introductory thing. What's much more valuable is OSCP, if you want to be a pen tester. That's the Kali Linux certification. That's very good. Certified Ethical Hacker is not probably going to get you a job, but it shows some security awareness.
Oh, a lot of the government, for some reason, a lot of the government jobs want you to have a CEH. It's really weird.
Military, most
they also accept Pen Test Plus now.
Yeah, Pen Test Plus from CompTIA is probably better than CEH. Yeah.
I've also noticed that for some reason, a lot of the jobs in the UK, for some reason, like the CEH too. So it just depends.
Yeah, but the CEH, the original material was all stolen property. It was Windows only and not Linux. It had a lot of limitations. They gave it a pretty bad reputation. OSCP has a much better reputation. And of course, CISSP is basically the union card of this business. Everybody's kind of expected to have it. It's not technical, though. It just shows that you know how to cooperate with like a corporate management and a government agency. And but that's pretty important in the business.
Yep.
Yes. SANS is very high quality, very wonderful, but it costs too much. You don't want to take SANS until your boss is paying for it.
Right. Sam, I'm going to take over the stream for 1 second. I'm going to show how to do something. And
go ahead.
Okay. So, all right. Take presenter. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Share my Kelly.
Yeah. Well, Steve Brule, you just have to get your boss to pay for it. Don't even try to pay for SANS. Also, some of my students get like special discount codes or invitations and stuff from women in cybersecurity and stuff. So if somebody else will pay for it, absolutely go for SANS. It's very good training, but you don't want to be the one paying for it.
It is good training. I find that most of the training for SANS is a little kind of very basic. It's hard for me to find classes in SANS that I really find really exciting. But there's a lot there, and you can definitely learn a lot. Anyway, so I wanted to show if people are having trouble with SAML Raider, if you look at this request that I got from my HTTP history, so I went to this website, I logged in, and I'm unauthorized. And if I look here in my HTTP history, and I can go here to my SAML Raider tab, everything is grayed out because it is still in my proxy history. I can't change history. That's not how linear time works, to my understanding. So what I have to do is move this to my repeater. To do that, I right-click on this request that has the SAML information. Right, this one. And it's going to be in purple, too. That's how I know it has SAML information. So I right-click. I send it over to the repeater. And now I'm going to get a new tab here in my repeater tab that has all the SAML Raider information ungrayed out. And now I can edit the SAML information. So if I wanted to remove signatures, I can do that. Haha, it's done. And then with that, I can send it again and see what happens and edit from there. Anyway, I just wanted to show how to move a request from the proxy to the repeater to get rid of the grayed out SAML Raider information.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you could do it that way. I did it the other way. Yeah. How would I get a shell from the command injection? Is there a one-liner for Windows? Oh, I think there probably is. You already kind of have a shell, but I know what you mean. Start a listening shell. I think you can do it with bitsadmin. It's a good question, and I don't.
So for a Windows shell, usually what I do, I mean, if you have access to PowerShell, you're done. You can do a PowerShell, reverse shell very easily. But let's just assume, but I would assume you don't have access to PowerShell. I always assume going onto a Windows box, all I have is the command line. You use something like Sam said, bitsadmin, to download a program from your machine like NC, like a copy of NC for Windows, Netcat for Windows, and then run a second command to run that Netcat command to create a reverse shell back to you.
It's worth mentioning living off the land. I mean, in the old days, people would download like rootkits and malware and put them on Windows servers. And now pretty much everybody has defenses. So you're learning to just use built-in Windows commands or real Microsoft commands from like sysinternals to do it instead. That's called living off the land, where you don't actually use any malware, and that's the most common modern technique. Because your antivirus and intrusion detection system will bust you if you use known malware.
Right. So I just added a link to the chat that you should definitely check out. It's impossible to memorize all the binaries and all the stuff they can do, because the idea of living off the land is you use something like bitadmin, which isn't for downloading, but you can set it up to download off the web. And the website I posted, Lolbass project, will go over every executable and say what kind of alternate functions these executables can do, so that you can figure out, oh, well, this one can download stuff, this one can run commands in the background, stuff like that.
Well, that is pretty cool. I like that. I'm going to save that.
Yeah, do add it. So there's Lolbass for Windows, and then there's GTFO bins for Linux. I'll get a link to that. So Lolbass, GTFO bins. Whenever I'm doing any living off the land, I always have those two websites up to give me some ideas of what I can use, because that's how you do living off the land. Is there a DLL way to get a reverse shell? Yes, you can absolutely do that. You can. There's a couple ways to do that. First, you can use like run DLL to just like run a DLL just like an executable. But also you can upload your own DLLs and have it take over for another DLL. And there's multiple ways to do that, including altering path variables or taking advantage of path variables, or putting the DLL that you want run in the directory of the executable. The other thing you can do is do a DLL injection, in which you can overwrite files, or not overwrite functions within a specific DLL, and that's how things like Steam is able to put overlays on your DirectX games or whatever you have. Right. You can put a DLL in the right place, and it'll run when the program you're trying to attack runs. But also you can just hide a executable directly in the DLL and run the DLL directly like an executable using the run DLL command.
Looks like it's noon.
Yeah, we have 1 more hour to go. Right. I don't think Sam's talking, or if he is talking, he's talking to someone else right now. So that's why you can't hear him. Yeah, Sam's probably busy dealing with the home invader, knowing how 2020 is going. Yeah. So for like GTF opens, I absolutely love it because certain times you'll have programs kind of doing things like you'll have a log viewer, and you don't know that it's running more to display the logs, the more command. And it turns out that the more command, if you like shrink down the screen so it actually has to pause, you can like push the the colon button on your keyboard and like just start typing in commands into more, and it'll run. Like there's so much cool stuff you can do if you just look up Lowell Bass and see all the different functions that these programs use. So I do everything. I have an OSCP, and definitely my love and passion is red teaming. Unfortunately, let me turn off recording for 1 second. Pause recording, yes. Okay, so let's see. Seems like there are more. Blue team pays more. Red team is kind of fun. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the red teamers go off around the country and they do like physical pen testing where they're doing crime, and it's so much fun to do crime for a living. I got to say, I did that as my first job in security, was doing crime, which is amazing. But definitely the money and the kind of corporate respect is all in blue team. So if you want to make money and you kind of just want a day respectable job that you can do well into your 60s or 70s, blue teaming is the way to go. But if you're young and you just want to have fun and do something exciting, red teaming is so much fun. So much fun. How much is SE in scope, social engineering? For this competition, it's always in scope. Hack all you want, have fun. If you want to SE, go ahead. That's all I can tell you. Any insight on the last NASA hack? Well, we're recording right now, so obviously I don't work at NASA. I work for the Telegraph Company. But NASA is is not. I think the security could be improved at NASA. That's what I'll just put it at that. So a contractor got hacked recently, a few weeks ago, and NASA itself had nothing to do with that, but it was a big deal. And so I can't really comment too much on the contractor side. I couldn't talk about the NASA side either, obviously, because I don't work there. I think I work for the Telegraph Company, and but either way, NASA's fine. But I do think that NASA could be improved because we're basically like a college network. We're a research facility, so it's like a flat network a lot. And I've met other hackers who are like, "Oh yeah, I used to hack NASA all the time for fun," and I'm like, "I bet you did. It's definitely possible." I've seen things, I've heard of things on the NASA network that kind of were like, maybe that shouldn't be there. And plus, there's kind of this old mindset of a lot of people don't like having their stuff pen tested all the time. So a lot of times, I would hear stories of finding default creds on NASA equipment because no one bothered to test. So that's all I'll say. Don't hack government stuff, people. Just keep it all legal. Government stuff in particular can get you in a lot of trouble. Don't do that. Yeah. So one of the things I did as a red team when I was working in private industry, we actually pwned a sales website, and we gave ourselves credit and we bought cat toys with stolen credit from our site. And yeah, the conversations we had with the other team who ran the site were interesting, to say the least. But we had a sinking sensation that sinking feeling that our cats would play with the stolen toys more than the regular toys, and it's true. Cats really do like stolen toys more than actually regularly bought toys. So.
Sam, if you're talking to us, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, I don't think Sam's talking to us. His head's turned. Okay, so as far as SC, I will say though, SC is the weakest point of most security in places is not the technology. I mean, that's the fun thing to exploit. And personally, I don't like SC myself because I don't like manipulating people. I just kind of get a bad feeling about it. But the weakest, the weakest point of any company or any piece of security are the people. And so when you are doing red teaming professionally, one of the first things you will do, and one of the things you'll repeatedly do, is test phishing emails. You'll do a lot of OSINT on people. You'll do spear phishing, which is targeted phishing. You'll go after you'll find out the company's chief of operations, write an email saying, hey, you're the chief of operations, I need your help with this, click this link, and stuff like that. So SC in red teaming is super important. I don't touch it personally because I mean my time is better spent on the technical side, as well as the fact that I just don't feel comfortable with it. But I will say that when I was doing red teaming full time, we had psychiatrists or psychologists on our team or behavioral psychiatrists who understood people really well and knew exactly how to craft messages to get people to do what they wanted. Is OSCP the best if you just want to specialize in web? So there's actually a cert after the OSCP that you can get, the OSWE, which is specifically targeted towards web AppSec or web red teaming, I should say. That would be a pretty good one. I don't know if it's the best for WebSec. It depends what you're doing. But if you want to do red teaming and focus on the web, the OSWE is pretty good. Let's see, having trouble on bots 1.4. I think I'll wait for Sam to do that one. I will say again that the answers to bots is on the internet. If you want to look at the answers. Sam went away. If you want to look at the answers to bots, you can do that.
He's just having trouble submitting it. So okay. Did you make sure that you're trying to submit under the regular or under the proper area for submitting the flag? Because a lot of the times people aren't trying to put it in the right spot. Can
you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, was something wrong with your computer? Is that why?
Yes.
Yeah, my voice died for a minute. Good. So.
I'm sorry, Sam. Your head was turned. I assumed someone had broken into your apartment or something, and you were trying to scare them away. Go away, bad guy.
That's fine. I see somebody count the flag for 102.6.
I see why you'd be having trouble submitting it, because I'm not seeing a 1.2.6 on there.
Oh, good. Well, that sounds like something I can fix. All right. That's the boss of the sock, right? ED 102.6. Okay, let me figure that out. ED 102. Okay.
I was looking
okay.
Yeah, I see it. It's 102.6 there. So make sure you click the radio button. Make sure you click.
Just hit ED.
Yes, make sure you click the radio button next to ED so that you can find it on the drop-down menu.
But so that one I can fix.
We're still
No
having
problem.
trouble submitting after that. Just ping us.
Okay, and botch v14, I can demonstrate that. That's fine. That was this one here. What you're probably doing is leaving the filtering on. That's the most common mistake. Let me bring up my botch. It should be, here it is. Okay, so, all right. So if I go back to here and I turn on event sampling, and for that one, you're doing the HTTP, so it is this stuff. Okay. All right. And so he said you're in trouble with number 4, which is this one here, the defacement file name. So you want to find the server's IP. So you go to HTTP, you put in the domain name. I'm really not Batman. Okay. And that gives you traffic to the web server. Now you find attack traffic, like with Acunetics in it, which is right here. Those are usually really thick on the ground. That helps you find the IP of the web server. So the destination IP for this traffic running the Vuln scanner is the web server. So that's here. And I want to find traffic from the web server. So I go to the client IP and filter for that value, and then replace it with this value. And now I've gotten to where I think you are. Whoops, I didn't get my copy. All right. Let me go back. I highlighted it, but I didn't copy it. So let me find attack traffic. Come on, it's not moving. Okay, there we are. Let's find one of these Acunetics requests, which is this one. This is the Vuln scanner running. So I want the destination IP of that, which is this. That's the web server. So I copy that. Okay, now I filter for client IP equal to that. Which is here. Okay, and at this point, I'm trying to find traffic that's going the wrong way, but you'll find nothing because there's 2 mistakes here. The first one is I still have the domain name in there. I have to get rid of that because this traffic is not coming to my web server. And the second one is I'm still sampling. So I have to get rid of the domain name and I have to stop sampling. And then you'll find the 9 suspicious events. So I'll just leave that up for people who are doing the bots. That is the thing that gets you the first several flags. This is the one that finds the traffic going the wrong way. All right. Let's see what else. 300.1 is missing from the dropdown. Uh-oh. For W300? Oh, let me check. That's rude. If that's true, I will have to fix that. 300. It is. Oh, pardon me. I can fix that. Let me find out how many there should be. W300 is here. And it's got only one flag, 300.1. Well, that's easy to add. All right. W300.1. Okay, it just goes right here. I keep writing more challenges, and I don't always remember to add the right fields in the other databases. All right. Let me try uploading that file. That should solve that problem. Okay. This is CTF. Wait, something bad happened. Uh-oh. Oh, good. All right. the problem with GUIs. You can drag a whole folder into the wrong place, and then you're sorry. All right. Now there's a 300.1. Okay, good. Hopefully that's fixed. Good. Let's see what else might require attention. So, okay, W300 is there. How can I order the events in Splunk by time? In Splunk, events are automatically ordered with the most recent event first. And I don't think you can change that. But you can filter by time up here. Here I did all time, and you can go here and put in a relative or real time. And by the way, for one of these challenges, you actually have to narrow it down to just a few seconds. And a big issue is the time zone. So you have to, I think the time zone is in your local time. It depends on where you are. So you do have to start with a broad range and figure out what time zone you're in, and then narrow it down. But you can totally specify here. Yeah.
Also in Splunk, one of the useful skills to know is how to pipe into tables where you can sort the data by any value you want.
You can do that in here.
That's all. Yeah, in the search, you just pipe into table, and then
you can do a sort, right? You can do pipe this into like you can have results and go into sort and unique. That's true.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. See if anything else needs fixing. Good. Good. People moving right along. A whole college course is typically about 500 points. So you folks are getting a good portion of it done here. Quite a lot of you. And it didn't lose the scores anymore. So I think Caitlin's improvement from yesterday is holding. We actually lost all the scores halfway through last time for a race condition and apparently successfully fixed that.
Since
Another
more people here than that are on the report. So if you didn't get on the score, at least some points, and you want some help, please let us know, and we'll help you at least get on there so that you can get rolling.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I'll have no step away again. I'll be back.
So my thought on handbooks or using using a class or something on or a guide online is to just sit down on the computer, set up a lab, and play. That's how you learn, and that's why this CTF is set up like it is, where you just kind of go in and you do the things. Sam talks really quickly, you do this, and obviously we kind of all tune him out, and he knows this because we're all supposed to be working on the projects, and that's where you get the most experience, and that's where you kind of learn things is by doing things. So set up your own stuff. If you want to play with Burp, set up a lab. and try to do everything you can with Burp. The only thing that I get a lot of use out of from books is coming up with new ideas, like, oh, hey, I can use Burp to do SAML, for example. Like, I wouldn't know that off just by default Burp. I would have to kind of do some digging, but definitely get down, play with the stuff, create a lab, have fun. And that's what this is all about, and that's what works for me. But everyone has a different learning style. So,
as far as like documentation and stuff goes, the OWASP website is really a treasure trove of good info too. Like you can go down that rabbit hole very productively and learn a lot, I think.
Them and DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean has great walkthroughs and documentation for anybody to use.
So Zach says, I'm a web developer. How can I get my coworkers to think more about security of the apps they build? You can't. I'm sorry, Zach. Security. Oh, go on, Liz.
Well, that's true. But one thing that you can do to get some buy-in, I used to be a software developer. I used to face this problem regularly. And sometimes, like, it's just like Caitlin said, she's not wrong. Sometimes you just can't get them to care because it's just goes on the mountain of Tet with all the other things, with all the other should do's. However, one tactic that I found successful was to do a demos of some of this stuff. It's particularly successful if you can do it or get permission to do it on one or more of your own company's products and then show them. So a lot of the times they don't care because they don't understand how easy it is to do, why they would need to remediate that vulnerability. They don't understand what problems could be happening. For example, when I first started taking SAM's classes, I was working as a lead engineer at a company that will remain nameless. And I started off, the first class I took of SAM's was actually this course, was the Securing Web Applications course. And as I was doing my homework for the class, we were getting compromised in certain ways that were actually directly related to the homework assignments. And so they weren't I would tell people, they wouldn't listen or care. And then I did a little lunch and learn demo one week where I actually did some of these techniques on our products, and the manager, the IT manager, and a couple of directors were like, wow, we had no idea. And I'm like, this is what I'm telling you about. So sometimes actually showing the way that these things can happen and explaining to them the business impact that they can have can get you some traction. Other times it's just like Caitlin said, and you may as well just go bang your head against the wall.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. I was actually going to mention that. The one thing you probably could do is do a demo. That always turns a lot of heads. The other thing too is so before I was doing security, like most people in security, I was first teaching kindergarten and little kids. I mean, that's generally how this progression goes, right? So one of the things you learn is you don't tell kids, don't climb on the desks. First, you learn, put everything positive. So you say, stay on the ground, kids. But even if you do that, like that doesn't really help. What you do is you change the environment. So instead of trying to change people, and this is my philosophy, you change the environment in which they work. And so you want to give them the tools that aren't going to allow them to make the security mistakes that are really common. And that's how you get security into the development process. You don't go, hey, people, you're going to be secure now. And they're just not going to listen to you because they think you're crazy. But if you give them the tools that aren't going to make them have mistakes, like, for example, instead of writing an operating system in C, you could do something like Rust. that would probably be the way to go.
I understand the desire to occasionally, want to introduce a cattle prod or a taser into this process, but that's probably not going to get you the best buy-in from C-levels.
Right, and Liz, I think you hit a really good point. Put everything in dollar values. The higher ups really like to see that, and that's how you get change. You say, "Hey, we're going to lose such and such amounts of money if we don't improve our security practices." Then they'll start listening. So
that's really all they care about, and I'm hoping that certain countries, some countries are starting to actually enforce GDPR and tag a dollar limit to these, and so I'm kind of hoping that we follow suit here and that becomes more of a widespread thing, because a lot of the time, one of the big issues is that companies just have zero incentive to protect our data. I mean, here in the US, we had this big, I don't know, some of you may remember the Equifax breach, where all this consumer data was just dumped out there into the ether. And one of the really egregious things about that is you can't even opt out of having the credit bureaus have your data. And it's just been kind of a cascade of failures that they've never remediated. I mean, it's still like that because we don't incentivize them to actually protect consumer data in this country. So if there's no dollar value, it's not like they're going to lose business or anything. Then for them, they don't care. All they can say is security to be just another overhead cost, unfortunately.
Lord of the Realm says, one of the things I've been stressing in some organizations is bonuses for not getting breached. I mean, that sounds good, except for the fact that no matter how good your security is, you can still get breached. So I don't know how I feel about that.
I've heard people talk about gamifying it, where you have sort of a contest where you send out fake phishing and people that catch it get like some kind of prize or something.
And there are other interesting sort of things. Like I noticed, so I have besides being a teacher, if you can believe this, teaching doesn't really pay a lot. So I do maintain a business on the side, and I have to buy liability insurance for that business. And I noticed this year when I was renewing my policy that they had a new option for cyber insurance on the business liability forms, and this cyber insurance is supposedly protects you in case of compromise and stuff like that. Now I'm interested to see if that becomes more of a thing, if they'll eventually be pegged to audit. So just with say like a PCI compliance audit, if you'll have to meet certain conditions in your company in order to either be eligible for that type of insurance or to be eligible for a payout in case of compromise. So, that's sort of an emergent thing here, at least in this country. And I'm hoping that that might have some positive influence on the general landscape as time goes on too.
Yep, I saw somebody trying to inject script, which is fine. But as you see, I did some filtering to stop it. I also had a technique to remove like long names like this that kind of mess up the scoreboard, but it doesn't work because I can't inject code like this into my removing script. So my own security is defeating my functionality. But anyway, that's often the case. It looks like Justin is likely to be the winner. You got about a half hour yet. You win the glorious no prize. So. I mean, one kind of security that I've gained more appreciation for is compliance. I found a bunch of health data just blowing in the breeze, and that they had a HIPAA office at the company. So when I reported it, they took it down quickly. So that was nice. Then they blamed me and got me in legal trouble and everything. So you can't have everything. But anyway, at least there was somebody that cared. Most vulns, when I report them, nobody cares. They just throw away the report and do nothing. Compliance means that there's, to some extent, at least somebody you can tell who will actually do something. Now, loading everything in CSV, can we inject Excel code? No, this code is incredibly simple. You can see my code. This is the only thing I've actually put on GitHub is the scoring engine we're using. You'll find it, I think, on the submit page. Let's see. If I go here, yeah, submit flags. There, you can get the scoring engine down here. It's on GitHub. This whole thing is like 2 or 3 files with like 20 or 30 lines of PHP. That's it. There's really nothing to it.
But I do want to point out that if you do manage to inject code into the scoring engine, that's extra points.
Absolutely. Give it a shot. But this is just a flat file. In fact, you can even see it. I added an option here when I was teaching classes and I wanted to know what people were doing. Over here on the scoring engine, you can see the most recent flags. Yeah, here, recent scores. That's all it is. It's just your name, the thing, and how many points, just a flat file. And so it doesn't go through any processing. It's just a CSV file. And there you see, these are the recent scores. This is just the file run through tail. And then I think I did a little bit more to like take away the third column of points. But that's all it is. It's incredibly simple.
Just a quick reminder.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to put out a quick reminder also to people, since we're getting towards the end, that links to different resources and stuff like that we've talked about in chat, I tried to keep up with them as best as possible, but most of them are in the shared notes section. So if you want to grab any of those before the workshop's over, just click on that shared notes tab. It's on the it's on the left, upper left panel of the window here in the browser. You should be able to see it. And then if you click on that, you can access whatever's in there, and then
that's a good idea. I'll jump up to the page. Might as well do that. We got, so here's the page I can put here. All right, let's see what else. Okay, this looks good.
So we have a question. What is blind SQL injection? So blind SQL injection is when you don't get direct output from the server. So like imagine a query, which will show the results, but not the original input. And so you don't know if, you don't get results directly back, but what you can do is you can send in extra SQL commands that will take a long time to run. And depending on how long it runs, you can figure out the results that you get back. And that's why it's called blind. So you don't see it, but you can kind of figure out what's going on within the SQL command that you sent.
Good. All right,
Exactly. It's like a side channel attack where you're using timing to figure out what's going on the system.
Good. Don't use the same browser for both Burp and Big Blue. Well, yes, I wouldn't. Yes.
I typically just keep one browser configured as a proxy browser just for this. So
yeah, because of course Burp is running in Java and it can't keep up with a lot of traffic. So it will tend to choke things off. I'm glad to see the top 10 here. Everybody should know that.
For me, the big reason why I use two browsers when I'm using Burp is just because I don't want all my Google and, how do I do this, how to do that history being thrown within the Burp history, in the proxy history, just so I can find stuff.
Yep. So here's the top 10, OWASP top 10, which is really at the center of this course. These are the injection is the one we talked about here, but there's the other things. These are just the most common web app vulnerabilities, and everybody in the business should know these. And if you pay for a pen test or a security audit, this is typically what people expect, is that you did the top 10. And there's also an API top 10 that goes with it, which is increasingly important now that you test APIs. So,
TryHackMe has an OAuth's top 10 room. I put it in the chat.
Oh, good.
In case anybody's interested in that kind of stuff too.
Is that free?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, let me check it out.
Well, that's up forever.
Neat.
It's one of their many rooms that they have.
Ooh. Well, I'm throwing that in the resources. That looks good. So you can practice using. Oh, that sounds great. Okay.
And there's also OWASP Juice Shop if you want to get your hands on a vulnerable.
Yeah, that's one also great.
Yeah, try out some of your newly honed skills.
That sounds good. When I get these on the page, then there's some chance of people finding them. So this one on Twitter. Let's see. In a theoretical way, your code could be vulnerable to CSV injection. Yes. In principle, yes. I guess if you could inject a special character, then you might be able to cause someone else's score to count against yours or something. Yeah. And what was the last one you had, Liz? Can you post it in the chat? I'd like to add it to the page too.
Sure. Yeah, that's OWASP Juice Shop. I'll put a link to it here.
Good. Well, see, I never put that script in anything, that text in anything in my code, though. So I don't think you could get code injection. I think you can cause it to misunderstand the score and give you someone else's points, but I don't think you get code injection. But maybe you say when it runs it through the regex in PHP, but it doesn't run it. Yeah. But I don't download it and run it in a Excel or anything. Yeah, but you're right. There might be a way to get code injection. Anyway, Liz, did you post it? I don't see it. Maybe you put it in shared notes.
I'm posting it. I'm actually going to post a few different links here because somebody actually set up a deployment. So I'm posting a link to the project page, and then the GitHub repo, and then the deployment. I was just waiting to put them all together.
Okay, no problem. This is the Juice Shop. I think I've heard of this. Sort of like Hackathon, right? Okay. Ooh, maybe I should be using it.
Yeah, Juice Shop is great.
Well, this is great stuff.
Pair programming. No, I did one. I did one with Jason Haddix that was pretty good. And I mean, all of these too. Like, if you have a friend that's into it and you're into pair programming, like, personally, I hate it, but I totally see the value in doing it, and I've done it before, and it's especially good when you're learning and you're teaching somebody. It requires a level of patience that's challenging for me personally, if I'm trying to learn myself that way. But for teaching, it's a great teaching tool. If you want to do that, what I would do is try and maybe like team up with some people and work on learning it together, and then you can work on the challenges yourself and bounce ideas off of somebody else.
Yeah, I think the hard part there is everyone has to be at the same skill level.
I don't know, not necessarily. I mean, I think it can be good when there are varying skill levels, but because you can learn from people that are maybe more advanced, or some people might be more advanced in certain areas but not in others. But I think it's sort of a rare thing, and it's one of those things that for most people you spend sort of trying the different things on your own and then learning through trial and error.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's a real art to work with other people, and technical people tend to be bad at it. So. I remember when I was starting to do the cyber competitions in the teams, one thing that people didn't appreciate at first is that the person running the team is often not the most technical. That's not really the point. The point is to be the one that people can get along with and to be organized. 420.3. I don't know how to get the box for state. Well, let's see, 420.3. Let's see if I can figure this one out. Well, I'm failing step one of figuring out what. Here's 420. Oh, Wireshark. Okay, good. Now I figured out what's going on. 420.3 is basic authentication. Oh, okay. And when you're trying to find the password, oh, well, that's pretty easy. The only trick is it's not just right there in the info column. So if you open this one in Wireshark, and then you're looking for somebody's password, a user named Waldo, so you can, this might be so short you can just, you can just flip through, you can see it. So here he's trying to get something, and okay, this might be it right here. There's a get to get a secret thing. And down here, there's authorization basic. This is what you want to see. So that includes all the data in base 64. And you could copy that into a base 64 decoder, but Wireshark will decode it right here. So in the middle pane, it'll decode it. It won't put it here, though. So that's what you do. You find the packet that has the basic authentication. And this is username : password in base 64. So anyway, some W's are missing. 202. Uh-oh. What in the scoring option again? W202. Okay, and let's see. 202.1 is there. Oh, but their later ones are missing. Well, that's rude. There should be 202.2 and 3. Well, I can fix that. All right. I must have added more challenges. All right, this is life. You're right. Two and three. Well, far more mistakes than usual in this one, but life.
I went ahead and added those OWASP, the Juice Shop resources to the shared notes page. So if any of you need the links to those, they're appended at the bottom of the notes.
See if that does it.
And the differences there are you can either set up a version to run locally and run your own little web server on your host machine, or you can use the deployed version where somebody's already set it up and run it on Heroku. Now, I haven't personally used that deployed version, but it's nice if you don't want to mess around with setup and start your server and stuff.
I've used it and it works just fine. You just have to direct all your traffic out to it, but it works just fine, just like if you ran it locally.
Scanning all the top websites for vulnerabilities, you might have some legal issues. I know Rapid7 did that for the whole web, all the Windows servers. So, but they did it in partnership with the Department of Homeland Security. Technically, you're committing a billion felonies, so you really ought to.
Shodan has some of that information already, so you can just search it rather than actually running the scans.
Now, somebody wants help on W510.3. All right, W510.3. I have to find it.
It's at the top. It's Burp, yeah.
Okay, and what's 3? Repeater? Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. We talked about this. So you have to get the traffic into Burp, which is here. There. Oh, it's right here. Good. So you have to open this page in Firefox, which is going through Burp. And clear history. Okay, then you refresh this and you see the, you enter this stuff here. So put in like California and submit. And you get the request here with the state. So that's what you want. So whoever's asking about 5.3, you got this. If you can't see it here, then you're not going through the proxy. You have to check your proxy settings in Firefox. But if you are, then you can just send this to the repeater and you can resend that request and you can change this name to be anything you want and you'll see the flag. So that might do it. JRED, get username and password rejected. In 510.3, there is no username and password. So I'm confused. 510 is just this website here. Maybe it's some other challenge you're doing, JRED. He's typing. Good. It's literally the guide. Yeah, you're right here. Yep, you're actually right there in the instructions. Yeah. I put the form just right on that page. Yes, no, it's not on the same as this one. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Right, that's it. Yeah, you do have to open the instructions in the browser. Yeah. You have to open the instructions in the browser that's using the proxy, which is kind of recursive. Yeah, all right. Good. Oh, we're down to 5 minutes. I don't know. It looks like Justin's the winner. Unless these people solve a bunch of challenges really fast. Or they figured out how to hack the scoreboard. Caitlin didn't announce any ways to cheat today. Something's wrong.
I would never encourage cheating. That's...
Well, something has changed. But there's, I know.
What?
I totally did.
I did let people know that they can look up the boss of the SOC answers on the web. So
I did. Now I feel better. Okay, good. It just wouldn't be right otherwise. And that's why I gave them that warning at the beginning that winning this doesn't mean quite as much as it would to win like the DEF CON capture the flag, because there are many ways to cheat. So.
Also, the only prize here is your vast knowledge and fun that you get from doing.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. There's no black badge or anything. But I realized this is how I learned my favorite stuff. I used to take physics courses and I would just go to the problems in the back and solve them and then only read the chapter as needed. That's the natural way to learn, I think. I think the most common students are this way. They just want to do it and they don't really want to hear any blah, blah until they get stuck. And then they just want to hear the answer to their question and keep going. Listening to an hour-long lecture is not really the main way people learn.
Some people do. It's not the best way that I learn, but some people do learn that way. I mean, I'm always surprised when I taught this class last semester that was a network security course, and boy, these students wanted their 3-hour lecture every week, and so I did it, but it was a challenge to talk for that long sometimes.
There's always a few. Like I've had students who really wanted to read the book and memorize everything in the book and repeat it. There's a small number of people that want to do that, but that is not the most common. The most common is the CTF way, like Kids Guy is saying there. I agree. Yeah, this is the way. That's why CTFs have become the standard of this business. Everybody goes to cons. Everybody loves the CTFs. Most people like to learn this way.
And
you have some challenging project and you have to figure it out.
And as was mentioned earlier, Sam, Irvin, and I are all college instructors, and so this is how we teach our college classes.
Yeah, we are hands-on. We don't like to just talk all day.
And I know that most people don't really like reading the book and they don't much like the lecture, so they don't have to. The attendance is optional. The lectures are on video. The chapters are there. The only thing you really have to do is the hands-on. And if you find that other stuff helpful, it's there. But if you want to ignore it, I don't care. I just care, can you do it? Would an attacker have to force it? Oh, DES.
So in this case, it's being set server side. And so in theory, depending on how the software is configured, there have been attacks, downgrade attacks, where you downgrade the encryption to something that you can attack. But in this case, it depends on the software being used. So sometimes.
And it depends on who's setting up the deployment. You'd be surprised how many insecure configurations, just like I was saying earlier about low hanging fruit, like SQL injections and stuff like that. I mean, there are a lot of issues out there, not just with small companies either. Big companies will have seemingly basic stuff misconfigured, and it's still a problem.
Yeah, I just realized in theory it should be possible when you do a TLS handshake, like for HTTPS, you send over some plain text describing the cipher suites, supported and what you want to use. So in theory, it should be possible to do a man-in-the-middle attack where you essentially send out requests saying, "Oh, I only support single DES. Could you please encrypt using, just regular DES, 24 bits or something." I don't know. And then the clients and server would still create a connection, but it would be downgraded, and then you could attack it like that. In theory, I mean.
Oh, that actually absolutely happened, especially with the cipher friendly. I mean, the legal suites that were weakened. That's sort of how the beast and crime attack work. Well, that's it. The winner is Justin. I'm posting up the final scores. Something bad happened here.
So the CTF is continuing. You can continue doing problems. You can go to the site. Most people just leave because it's a lot of fun to do this with a lot of people and be in a community. It's less fun just to kind of do it by yourself. But it's still there. It's going to be up for all time, as mentioned earlier, or at least until the collapse of society in 3 months or so. And feel free to come and work on the projects, go through everything you've read before, and use these resources to your heart's content.
And you can also reach us at our Twitters, which are at the top of the page.
All right, let's see if that works. I've got to post up these scores. There. That looks right. So all right, that might have done it. Let me see. Scores from Hope. Aha, something's still wrong. Scoreboard. Oh. That's disturbing. Oh, it's got an extra 129S in the URL. Okay, good. So let me fix that. There. There, the glorious scores are up, so I'm going to clear off the old scores. Your scores are archived for posterity.